that a response? No, okay.
No, I'm here. Sorry.
Oh, great, okay.
I'm on Zoom and then I'll be in person momentarily.
Sounds good, thank you. That's Matt Metzger, he's en route. Erica Olson is absent with notification. Brian Pape. Thank you. Donna Raftery is absent with notification. Lois Rakoff. Thank you.
Hey,
Bo
Lois,
Rickman is also absent with notification. Brucio Sands.
so that's a good question. You have my agenda? Is this it?
Okay. Shirley Secunda.
Online.
I see Shirley.
I'm here.
Edward Siegel. Frederica Siegel. Thank you.
No, she's not here because she's not in the room.
Emma Smith, I am present.
What is that for?
Dr. Shirley Smith. Chenault Spence. Susan Wittenberg. Anthony Wong is absent with notification. Eugene Yu. Thank you.
Who walked in? Just the one or two people. We have Susan Gammy and we have Anita.
Thank you both. One moment. Take note.
Do we have a quorum?
We have exactly 26. Thanks, Ryder. I had you.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Yes.
since we do have a quorum, we can continue and I will take a motion to adopt the agenda. And second, and all in favor. Okay, thank you. At this point, we will go to our public session report, which will be run by our first vice chair, Valerie De La Rosa.
But I'm going to pass it back to you, Chair Kent, because I have an elected official.
Council member Christopher Marte is with us, so.
Good. How's everyone doing today? Good. Well, it's great to see so many people here. Connor is out on a vacation while he's reading all the City of Yes Housing Opportunity Plan on vacation, so I'm just subbing in for him. I do want to give an update on the economic opportunity. As many of you know, is going to come to a vote in the City Council on June 6th, and today it just was voted out of the zoning committee from a 5-2 vote. But I really want to talk about some of the massive changes, in my opinion, that have been made to the plan. And one of the biggest ones for me was making sure that there was not unlimited use in commercial spaces in NYCHA property. I mentioned that the last time I was here, one of my biggest fears was that liquor stores can just operate in the bases of these campuses and take advantage of some of our most vulnerable low-income communities. And now they put into place that they not only need a CPC approval, but they also need to go through a full City Council ULURP. And so hopefully when someone applies to manage that commercial space, it's one that's going to support the residents of public housing and not do harm. Another big one that I know a lot of members in this community board and my other two community boards mentioned was the home occupation. And so when it was presented at the community boards, they would have allowed 3 to 5 individuals to work out of this home occupation space. Now we got that down to 1. When it was modified at CPC, it was around 3, but now only 1 person can work out of their apartment. And as many of you know, they did limit the amount of space that someone can use in their apartment. In the original version, it was unlimited. Right now, it's got to a maximum of 1,000 square foot or less than 50% of that person's apartment. We also got some adjustments on when it comes to nightlife venues and places with dance floors, putting a cap at 200 people in C1 through C6 districts. If you live anywhere near a bunch of bars, you know that the more density, the more people that come up, just it really diminishes the quality of life. So having a cap and having the difference between a ticketed event and just a bar with a dance floor, I think is going to help ease a lot of the fears that people had with that one. Another thing, which I think city planning did mention to the community boards, is that they're not going to allow.
Excuse me, we are not able to hear. The volume is really low. Sorry about that.
All right, can you hear me now? Online?
No,
Yeah, you do have to hold it like an inch from your.
Can you hear me now?
yes,
Okay, sorry about that. I won't go over what I mentioned. I'll just start where we won on a lot of these proposals that honestly, I did not think we were going to make all these changes from when city planning first presented them. A few other ones is that we're limiting where people can grow cannabis in the city. They're putting a lot of restrictions on location and the size of the square footage that someone can have cannabis being cultivated in, their apartment or in commercial spaces. The biggest fear was that people were going to take over warehouses and have, cannabis farms in the city. I know that was a big one, especially for the outer boroughs. We're going to restrict the size and scope of amusements and recreation uses, especially in my district. If you walk throughout Soho, you see a lot of the new activations of spaces where we're going to restrict what type of those can be there, also what type of equipment they're using at these locations. There was huge adjustments to last mile warehouses and micro distribution centers. There was a coalition called the M Zone Coalition, which really was trying to fight to protect manufacturing districts from big companies like Amazon and just coming in and taking over a whole manufacturing district to use as a warehouse. So now we're going to still allow the diversification of manufacturing zones as we see it today. Also, we've been able to limit the type of businesses that can be next to a residential unit and also eliminate some of the certain vibrations, air quality, improve the air quality standards and noise as well. So those were the major big ones. We recommended 23 amendments from my office to city planning and council land use and got 21 of those amendments placed in the economic opportunities. So I really want to thank the community boards because it really started with you guys. A lot of the community boards voted no on the onset or voted no with some recommendations. And I think that really helped the council really push for those changes. So, as we go into the housing opportunity and as you started dissecting all the presentations and comments and articles, realize that you can make change to these proposals. Because when I first saw the economic opportunity, I didn't think they were going to make as many changes as they did. Also, I'd like to thank Connor on my team. He's going to be available to anyone that wants more information on housing opportunity. We're planning to do a virtual town hall and opening it up to all the community boards and all the stakeholders in our neighborhoods so people can understand, how big this proposal is and how it could possibly drastically change how people live in our city. There's a few more updates. I'll keep it quite short. On the budget front, as you all know, we're in the midst of it, and the administration has still proposed a lot of cuts, especially to libraries, to pre-K programs, to CUNY. We're constantly fighting all of these. We've been having oversight hearings for the past 2 weeks. Some of them have gotten really spicy, as you have seen in the news. But I think one of the biggest ones that I'm advocating for, and as well as the Progressive Caucus, and I have a pin with it right now, is called Homes Now and Homes for Generation. It's $2.5 billion for the next 5 years to not only protect affordable housing, but create new affordable housing. As we look at the housing opportunity plan now, they don't mandate affordable housing in it. And that's one of my biggest problems. But while we're advocating for zoning changes on that amendment, we also have to put the money there. So if we do get some sort of mandate, we can have the money to support it. And so that's the biggest fight that we're having among others. But that's mostly for me. I'll take questions if folks have.
Frederica.
Yeah, the question for folks online was, what is my office, I guess, initial feeling about housing opportunity? Um, One of my biggest concerns is with the voluntary inclusionary housing, the universal affordability preference, is that we currently in the city do have a similar model for that. We do have voluntary inclusionary housing. Most people don't take advantage of it. And so one of my biggest problems is like, if we know no one takes advantage of it now, why are we promoting that and not promoting mandating more affordable housing units, especially since MIH is not currently zoned in a lot of places. In my district, it's only zoned in Soho. And so developers can build pretty much as of right everywhere else and not build any type of affordable housing. So that's my biggest issue. A second issue is when it comes to conversion. My district last year saw, for the past 2 years, has seen the most production of new residential units. Most of them came from office to residential conversion. I think more than 20,000 units were produced. 0 were affordable. And that's as we look at, Midtown, where they're going to go through a massive rezoning and allowing this to happen citywide, especially in locations where there are a lot of commercial density. We need to have affordable housing within that mix. So those are my two biggest fights that I'm gonna go in. There's a lot more technical things. There are some good things with this plan. I think legalizing, basements, allowing homeowners to create additional units, whether it's in their garage or in their front lawn or back lawn, how that is defined is really important, but I do think that's good. I do think the town center proposal for more of the outer boroughs where they're going to allow commercial in the ground floor and 3 to 5 story of housing on top of that is similar to like Little Italy, which I think is a really good human scale model. So there are some good things, but I think the crisis we have now is an affordability crisis, and this proposal does not even dare to touch it. No, I'll keep it at that.
Okay, well, let me start with Susan. I'll work my way over. Susan Gammey, I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Rocio?
Apartment. Yeah.
Certain things within close to housing units.
Yes. So in economic opportunity, they're going to allow for the first time to have commercial, be commercial like retail or shops or businesses in the same floor and building as residential units. And so as we've seen in Soho, where there's, mixed use joint live work quarters, we get complaints about people having a performance upstairs or the type of paint that smells. And so we have taken kind of like our learned experience from this unique attribute that we have in Soho, NoHo, and parts of Tribeca, and made sure that if they expand this citywide, that people take those issues into account. And so that's why we wanted to focus on, noise, focus on like what type of work people can do nearby, right? Like I love going to my right? But it's really loud and I don't want to live right next to it, right? And I don't want them to be on top of me. And so it's making sure that we not only have kind of like a smaller scale business, but also the specific type of uses. Yeah.
This is all in residential buildings.
Yes.
Commercial, were you referring to retail? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Amy? is next.
Hi, and congratulations on getting 21 of your 23 recommendations passed.
Thanks.
Question for you, how do you define affordable housing? Is that tied to income or is it tied to market rates or?
The way I would like to define it is much different than how, the federal government does it. They do it through AMI. I think we have to look at that in income levels, right? I have certain areas in my district, like Two Bridges, that average medium income is $35,000. And so whenever there's proposals to build new affordable housing, I want that to match that local surrounding area. It's different by community boards, it's different by neighborhoods, but I think it has to be reflective of what's currently there to limit displacement pressures or speculation.
So in a Soho, NoHo, it might be a higher base income, right? So if somebody makes 35,000, there might not be an apartment available for them.
Yeah, and I think in certain areas, we just have to seek deeper, income levels. And currently we're pushing that in the council. As you saw within the housing opportunity, when they have the volunteer universal preference, it's at 60% average AMI. I think there's a lot of people in the council that want to go much lower because we know that's around $80,000, which is not affordable to someone who's trying to come out of the homeless shelter.
Okay, I see we have a number of questions, so let's just keep them concise, please, because I know this is a real opportunity to ask. Go ahead, Susan.
Hi, Chris. Nice to see you here. One small point about the work is that all the language has been about restricting distance side by side. And I keep bringing up that sound travels up and above.
Yeah.
And that's really important to include. In fact, we often find we hear sounds from above and below much more than side to side.
We've included that
Okay.
as well.
Okay. Dr. Smith.
Thank you. Thank you very much for at least protecting the interests of people who live in NYCHA housing. It's interesting that they would even think of putting a liquor store there. But what kinds of other restrictions, what other kinds of things, commercials or buildings or businesses will be there? And more importantly, did the residents have any say-so, or will they have any say-so on what kinds of businesses are going to be in those spaces?
Now they will, because now it will trigger full ULURP for any commercial space rental in public housing. Right now, all you need is a city planning approval, which if you trust city planning, that can go either way. But at least now it will have to come to the community boards. It'll have to go to the borough president. It'll have to go through the city council. And I think the process alone deters people who would know they will get rejected, right? And so, what I would like is in some of my public housing, we see more of the grocery deserts. And so I would like to see more supermarkets, more, healthy options that would support the community, or allow more, of our nonprofit partners to have social services in the complex.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Cormac, and then I have one question online, and then we're going to move to our council member Bacha.
Hi, Councilman. I just wonder if you had any thoughts to share about the new off-hours delivery program that the mayor is pushing that will have commercial deliveries being made between 1 and 6 in the morning in mixed use and residential streets, and the cumulative impact of that with, as congestion pricing comes in, the anticipated spike in idling truck in the early and late hours, and how that to all this wealth of new information about the huge negative public health impacts of interrupted sleep?
Yeah, I'll look into more of the regulations. I just saw the news clip that came out, but I have to really dig deeper on what type of deliveries are going to be made, who would take advantage of it, to give you a better answer. But I'll definitely follow up on that.
Thank you.
Ivy, I saw your hand was up. Do you still have a question?
I'm sorry. It's just that we couldn't hear. I mean, at least I couldn't hear at the beginning. I wasn't sure who was presenting and whether we can have his contact.
Hey, Ivy, it's Councilmember Christopher Marte.
Okay, I
Uh,
can't even see. Oh, hi, how are you doing?
Mark can share my email with the community. board.
Absolutely. We'll-
Thank
we'll
you
get
so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all the questions we've got for you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
And next, Act Two, Councilmember Botcher.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all. Eric Botcher, City Council Member for the west side of Sixth Avenue, down in the village and north of Spring Street, down at the village, and really appreciate the opportunity to be here and give you a couple updates. I want to update you on a very important piece of legislation that I introduced last week in partnership with City Council Member Yusuf Salam. And that is legislation that would require the Department of Health to place social workers in police precincts. I believe this is a critical missing piece to our efforts to address public safety. I just got off the phone a little while ago with Captain Zykel with the 6th Precinct. There's a great deal of frustration among our precincts, our officers, about the fact that they're out there, writing tickets, enforcing laws, this and that. But what is being done to address the underlying conditions behind so many of the crimes that we're seeing, including a lot of misdemeanors, a lot of petty crime? We've got folks cycling in and out of precincts every day for things like shoplifting. They get arrested for shoplifting, brought into the station, fingerprinted, photographed, booked, released, given a desk appearance ticket without any meaningful intervention to address what might be going on. Are they suffering from serious mental illness? Are they suffering from substance use disorder? A social worker, this is what social workers do. Do you have family in New York City or in the area that we could call together right now and make a connection? Are you part of treatment? So I'm excited about the bill, and I'm going to be coming back to Community Board 2 to ask for your support, because it is an uphill battle, anything that's transformative like this. But I believe that that we should really give it a try and make it the law of the land. I think it would make a big impact on public safety. You all are going to be considering, or in the process of considering, the City of Yes for housing opportunity. This is probably one of the most important applications that any of you will ever review as community board members. Because we in New York City are headed down a path that is taking us to a very bad place with respect to affordability. And the core of it is that the population of New York is continuing to rise. The amount of housing that we're producing in New York, and by the way, in the metropolitan area, Long Island, Westchester, is growing very slowly. Last year in all of New York, there were applications for 9,000 new apartments in a city of 8.5 million people. That is the core reason why rents have gone up so much. Since I moved to New York in 2001, where you could get a studio downtown for $1,500, and if you couldn't afford a studio for $1,500 downtown, that was a deal, but you could find it. You could go to the outer boroughs and get an apartment if you had $1,000 in your pocket. That's not true anymore. That's one reason why. That's contributing to all the public safety concerns that we have. So one of the big problems is that, the city council district I represent, we generated the most housing between 2010 and 2020 of any city council district in New York City other than Williamsburg, Greenpoint. But I have colleagues who lost population during that decade because you could count the number of housing units they generated on one hand. That's not fair, and it's not sustainable in New York City if we intend to be around for a while. And I think we do, because what happens if between 2010 and 2020, we had a net population gain of 630,000? They anticipate that could happen again and probably will happen again. What happens the decade after that with another 600,000? That's the population of Detroit, by the way. We have to think ahead and start treating housing production from a city planning perspective, planning for population growth. So where are people going to live? One of the proposals in the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity that I strongly support says that a half mile from a subway station, you could build 3 to 5 stories. Doesn't affect Manhattan. We're talking about the outer boroughs. So I call it West Village zoning around subway stations in the outer boroughs. And it wouldn't dramatically affect the character of the neighborhoods. It would house thousands and thousands of people, and it would help create walkable main streets in the outer boroughs. There's also a proposal that says there are commercial corridors in the outer boroughs that could be main street zoning, street level retail with housing on top. Again, we're talking 3 to 5 stories, sometimes taller. But if you drive out to New York, you'll drive for an hour. I mean, New York's really big, and it's very flat with 1 story. You know, we're talking a lot of gas stations, mattress stores, car washes, and some of these commercial. So I really believe that we have to, as a city, put in place a sustainable zoning framework that will allow New York to grow over the decades. And if we don't do it, we are not going to address what's happening with housing. We need to build 100% affordable housing buildings also, but that alone isn't going to do it, because we've got a proposal in front of that we're pushing for in the budget. It's like $2 billion. That would only build like 10,000 units of affordable housing. There's not 10,000 people who are rent burdened. There's millions. So it's easy to say this thing is a bunch of baloney and we shouldn't even consider it. We should vote it down. But we have to, it's like, as we're trying to address climate change, these are tough things, and they're going to involve like really complicated solutions. And we can't just say, you know, we're not going to address it in this form and we're going to like keep looking for other solutions. We know it works because it's been done in other places. In the city of Minneapolis, when they allowed for more density in undeveloped parts of the city, they built tens of thousands of apartments. It's the only major city in the United States that rents have remained flat. So I just ask you, as you consider these proposals, to really research, not, you know, look at what the people who do housing professionally, who study housing, not just here, but around the world. Look around the world, look around the country, and let's all come together and meaningfully address what's going on. Because if we all love New York, the future of New York really depends on it. Thank you.
We do have some questions. Susanna? Okay. and I just ask everyone, please, I know we have a lot of work to get to, so. It should be on.
Hello?
Well, it is on. Hey, Eric, thanks for the initiative on social workers and police precincts. On the Human Services Committee, we've talked to a lot of people who employ social workers, homeless outreach, mental health providers, and one of the biggest challenges that they face is being able to hire social workers. And the rates that the city will pay for social workers is too low to compete in the market. So I'm hoping that in addition to asking for social workers, that you'll be able to push for some financial muscle behind it, because otherwise it's kind of an empty promise. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. There aren't enough social workers to fill the open positions we currently have. And I believe that the answer to that is to really double down on addressing the shortage of social workers. I held back on the bill because I know that if we passed it tomorrow, we wouldn't be able to pass these. But I think we need to move full speed ahead on the solutions and the staffing shortages. One of the bills I strongly support in Albany, I introduced a city council resolution in support of it, would adjust the requirements for being an entry-level non-clinical social worker. There's an entry-level test that 45% of Black applicants don't pass versus 85% of white applicants, 45% pass versus 85% of white applicants. Other states have never had this test. Other states eliminated it. And when they eliminated it, they saw a huge surge in social workers. And that's just one of the things I want to address. But at the end of the day, it's the pay that we do have to address.
Thank you. Yes.
Dr. Smith.
Yes, the idea of getting more social workers, but when you're talking about social workers working with police, I'm hoping that you'll also be training police, not just putting those social workers actually in the building, because they need training as well. The police.
You're
need the
absolutely
training.
right, Dr. Smith. It's so important that all of our officers receive training, including cultural competency and all that. But they are not social worker. We sometimes ask them to be, to go out into the community and perform tasks, but I think we need to work with them. And I envision social worker being part of the team, coordinating with them, but not being hired by the NYPD or employed by the NYPD, by the Department of Health. Thank you.
Let me call on Ivy, who's online.
Hey, Eric. Two quick things. With the city planning to cut $5.3 million on HIV care, I would like to invite you to our town hall for ACT UP addressing that, because we also have been doing the Pride Health Fair. We've encountered a lot of clinics closing or not staffing. So I put it in the chat. It's going to be May 30th at the center. And in terms of housing, I do want to, I would like to have a meeting with you, because I am a small building owner, and I would like to add the component of city planning and the issue of private equities replacing just equity mortgage opportunities. And that has affected a lot of the cost. And I think the city's been eaten up by this. So I know this is a long discussion, but I think that's the elephant in the situation. So love to meet with you about that.
Thank you. And it is right what Ivy says. The mayor is proposing over $5 million in cuts to HIV services and prevention. The LGBT caucus, we wrote a letter to him this week. We did press in Gay City News. I've met with the speaker about it. I'm talking with the finance chair about it, but we're going to need people's voices. And I would like to, if I can come, I would like to come to that. And I would like to hear more about the complexities of being a small business owner and a small building owner. One element of City of Yes for Housing Opportunity, when we talk about 3- and 5-story buildings, we need to start empowering small property owners to develop their own property and not let these giant real estate developers being the only people building housing. You used to have in New York, people would own a piece of land and they would build a small apartment building. That's not happening anymore because it's not legal to build small apartment buildings in the outer boroughs. So let's empower property owners to develop their own land and build generational wealth, especially in communities of color.
I saw Frederica's hand up. Hi. We need a microphone back there.
So without putting you on the spot, you said that your district has created a lot of housing. And I just wondered how that broke out between Community Board 2 and Community Board 4.
Okay. Thank you. The vast majority was in Community Board 4. We, between 2010, 2020, we had the West Midtown, a great deal of housing, tens of thousands of units between West Midtown, Hudson Yards, West Chelsea. That's where the majority of the housing was produced.
Rocio, no, this is from members of the board.
I'll come find you.
Thank you, Eric. I just have a comment and another comment. My first comment is about too much regulation will strangle real estate and building real estate. You cannot regulate your way to solve the housing crisis. That's my number one. Number two, I hope that you will take the opportunity to tell everyone, otherwise I will, about Don Lee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I didn't have the pleasure of knowing Don Lee well. Councilmember Marte.
I should have asked him.
Yeah, he spoke very eloquently at our stated meeting about Don Lee. But I'll tell you, in our council meeting, a lot of members from all 5 boroughs knew Don Lee and worked with Don Lee. And I wish I had had the opportunity to work with him more closely. I met him on several occasions, but the amount of outpouring of grief after his loss just shows how much impact he had in the world. I think that's a very good point about regulation for property owners. I think you want to find the right balance between regulation, but you also don't want to eliminate the opportunities for like the kind of scenario like I described earlier, where you could have a property owner who owns their land. Maybe they inherited it from their grandfather who bought it after the war, and they want to build on the land, and you don't want to make it too impossible. So only one of the giant real estate developers could figure it out and do it. So we need to empower small property owners to be able to build as well.
I'm sorry, we do really have to move on. We appreciate so much all of the questions, and anything, if we can take stuff offline, that would be helpful, because it is already 7:20. I'm so sorry.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great holiday weekend.
We are now going to go back to public session and our first vice chair.
Thank you. Welcome to all the new members. The way that we run our public session is people sign up before, I believe it's 7 o'clock. They can either sign up online or they can sign up at the front here physically in the room. Everyone has 2 minutes to speak. Once we've gone through everyone in person and on Zoom, then I will ask if anyone in person or on Zoom signed up and perhaps it didn't get communicated to me, and then I will allow them 2 minutes to speak, and then we will close the public session. I'll turn it back over to our chair. So with that, let me just refresh the Google Sheet in case anyone else came up. All right, so we will go with in person. So I have Sandy Russo. I have Kate Madigan in person if you're here. And let's see, Pete Davies, Eleanor Wong, and Lois Rakoff. So if you'll just come line up in the order that I see no one standing up. We would like to get through this. Thank you. Okay, you could go ahead, sure. If you could speak at the microphone, please. Good evening. My name is Kate Madigan, Government Affairs Coordinator of the Public Theater. I wanted to share some free programming going on in Astor Place and beyond. The Public Theater is glad to be offering a full summer of free arts programming from May 28th to September 6th called Go Public, from free live theater and movies under the stars in every borough to a block party right here in Astor Place. To streaming at home, we have it all for the people of NYC. Our website has all the information. I will make sure that I will email the board so you can have it digitally as well. Starting tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday, come see our preview of Comedy of Errors, a bilingual Shakespeare adaptation. And then we'll be back in Astor Place by the Cube on June 23rd for another performance. Again, see our website for all locations and times. August 20th in Washington Square Park. Please join us for a movie under the stars of Much Ado About Nothing, a previous recording from our archived performance at the Delacorte Theater. And July 28th is the Black Party. You can also stream our past productions online. Visit our website. We are grateful to the community board for all the work you do to make sure you improve and maintain the neighborhood's quality of life. Thank you. Yes, I will send a digital flyer and I will hand this to you right now as well. Great. Next, Lois, would you like to go next? Great. I'm going to go in the order people are standing then.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lois Rakoff. I'm speaking for Washington Square Music Festival. It's the 66th year of free Washington Square Music Festival Summer Series, and some of you have never attended and you were little babies, and some of you have attended as little babies, and some of you have never attended. So here's your chance. It's every Tuesday in June at 8 o'clock in Washington Square Park. It's free, and there's flyers outside, but I think was it sent to you? The flyer was sent. I know you have it somewhere on the calendar. Anyway, in June 4th, it's Afro-Cuban music. June 11th, these are all Tuesdays, women in classical music. June 18th, Baroque to Latin music. And June 25th, a tribute to Count Basie. There is a rain space, which is at Grace Church. I think it's 11th Street, East 11th Street. And it's free. So you just line up and come in and sit down and have a good time. And it's by the Garibaldi statue, formerly known as where Teen Plaza was for you old timies. And I don't know what they call the stage now. So please come on out every Tuesday in June at 8, come before 8 o'clock, of course, line up, come in, and you could also bring blankets and sit out on the lawn and enjoy yourself and have a good time. Thank you. And you could get flyers outside. And I'm going to hand in the flyer.
Great. Pete Davies.
There we go. Pete Davies from Soho. I'm here to speak about a landmarks application. And supporting an amendment to the draft reso for 550 Broadway, which is a effort to legalize retail signage that was improperly installed without a permit. Right now, the reso is somewhat general because the applicant did not share with us the specific rule that had been violated by installing this retail signage. So I found section 2-13 D5, which is the rule which says that basically all the components of a retail sign outside cannot extend more than 4 inches from a building. Well, this sign, which kind of conforms with this retailer's signage that they put up in malls everywhere, extends nearly 9 inches from the building, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is beyond the rule. So I think it sends a better message to the Landmarks Commission for the board to say, this is the rule, this is what should be followed. Because otherwise, we know how things happen with the bureaucracy. They are likely to say, oh, it's not so bad. So anyway, I'm just supporting an amendment to make this a stronger resolution from the community to the Landmarks Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sandy Russo next.
Hi, everyone. Well, I'm here to talk about an application to the SLA2 committee for a building at 120 Leroy Street. I live on Greenwich Street, just around the corner of Leroy. And the applicant wants to, it's so corporate, it's disgusting, but the applicant wants to have a rooftop bar, paddleball courts, music. It's going to be a private club, but anyone can come and you could pay extra. If you're not a member of the club, they're going to have events, private events, public events. So and there is a whole bunch of residential buildings surrounding us. And the one thing I want to say, the committee voted unanimously to deny their application. But I was concerned that the committee started to sort of negotiate a little bit with the applicant, on stipulations. And here was the whole community, everyone who attended the meeting was adamantly against this. And I felt it was not the community board's correct posture to try and figure out and negotiate, because no one wanted to negotiate from midnight to 11 or how many events each month they can have over 200 people. So this is not a bid. This is not a, that kind of organization that it takes into account the interests of businesses within our community. This was a housing issue, a neighborhood issue, and I hope you all vote to deny this application when it comes up. Thank you.
Right there.
Thank you. Eleanor Wong.
Same thing. Hi, my name is Eleanor Wong. I live on 179 Grand Street.
Please keep the microphone close. Thank you.
Okay. Well, today is my first time to participate in this CB2 event. Anyway, I came today for 2 major reasons. Number one, I want to extend my gratitude and thanks to the community board for your denial of the liquor license of 183 Grand Street, Kaplan LLC. The bar that wants to open until 2 a.m. every day 365 days a year. And also using the rooftop garden like the lady just mentioned, the outdoor dining and the backyard. And because we do welcome new business, but we only want good neighbors. We live in a residential area, even though by the side of Little Italy. We are already saturated with bars and restaurant. But I did a survey lately. I talked with all the owners. Most of them said the restaurant are closed at 10 or sometimes a little bit after 10. And if they have bar, they will close earlier too. And I was just joking with them, why is close so early? And then they say, well, because COVID comes after 10 o'clock. Anyway, I make a illustration that this is a two condo where the bar and the restaurant will be doing the business. Okay, so I hope you understand it's very, if we live there, if you put it in the same shoes, you'll be suffering too. Anyway, I want to thank you. And also, I don't know where they are coming back with another application. So I appreciate you guys could watch out for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out here this evening to speak on this application. Would you mind holding that up so I could take a photo so I can look at it?
Would I what?
Can you hold up just want to take a photo so I can, because I can't see it from here.
These are the two condos. Can you see? These are the two condos.
Thank you.
One has 34 units.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next, excuse me? 183 Grand Street. Great. Did any other board members have questions for, thank you. Sorry about that, Patricia. I didn't see your hand. We have one person signed up to speak on Zoom. I do not see that person on Zoom, but I will, Jaja, and I'm probably not saying this correctly. Gia Do is going to speak about an exhibition in public spaces. I don't see that person. It's JIA. I don't see that person on Zoom. So I'm going to ask if there's anyone in the room or online that thought they signed up to speak for the public session, but did not get their sign in. With that, I'm going to close. I don't see any hands on the Zoom. So with that, I'm going to close the public session and turn it back over to our chair, Susan Kent.
Thank you, Valerie. Next, we will have reports from the reps, our elected officials, representatives. So, yes, please all come forward. First come, first serve. 2 minutes. Yes, please. Microphone.
Hi, everyone. I'm sprinting to get you out of here faster. I'm Katie Loeb. I'm Councilmember Rivera's Chief of Staff. I'll have a short update today to council members on maternity leave. So we've only introduced a handful of bills in the past 2 weeks. One is the reintroduction of the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act, which enables nonprofits and community land trusts to purchase buildings when they go on the market for sale. And she also reintroduced a bill today to implement a citywide gun buyback program requiring community-based organizations and faith-based institutions to participate or enabling them to participate in these programs. Yesterday, she came back and chaired her hearing on the executive budget in the Committee on Cultural Affairs and Libraries. The executive budget did not include $58.3 million for libraries and $53 million for cultural institutions. So we are fighting to get this funding restored at adoption. And we had a lot of support out yesterday. So we're really hoping, but any support that we can get from people in the community, really helpful, just advocating to fully fund libraries and fully fund arts and culture. Thank you.
Any questions? Rocio.
Thank you for presenting tonight. My question is regarding the, what you mentioned, the non-for-profits and the tenants buying buildings. Could you please tell us, besides the price of the building, who is going to subsidize those buildings when the tenants do not have money to make the major renovations that are required in a building, such as new roofs, new boilers, new electrical system, new plumbing? Will the city give a handout, or who's going to give the handout to maintain those buildings in proper? So if the city is, will the city also help other owners that are in dire need to have the same money to pay for those kinds of repairs?
Thank you so much for that question. This bill does not contain any funding with it. It would just allow a time period to enable these organizations to get financing together. We hear all the time about supportive housing organizations and affordable housing organizations that they see a building on the market and they just don't have the time to get the financing together. So this bill has nothing to do with market prices. It has nothing to do with funding. It's just about that time frame to give people equal footing to do this kind of affordable and supportive housing. But you bring up a lot of great points about how expensive it is to operate buildings. And our office works with the Accelerator program at the Department of Buildings to help building owners navigate the red tape or find funding sources. Sometimes it's tax breaks, like from the federal government's American Rescue Plan Act, different things like that to help building owners, because we know a lot of these expenses, like Local Law 11 and Local Law 97 are hitting people. We want to be able to facilitate as much as possible the resources that are available to people.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Tevin from Congressman Goldman's office. Just a few quick updates on my end. On the district side, the congressman is the chair of the Dad's Caucus and the Gun Violence Prevention Working Group. And just this past couple of weeks, he hosted students, teachers, and administrators in Washington, D.C. with the Congressional Dad's Caucus about their experiences on gun violence. This was also organized by the New Yorkers Against Gun Violence. Given the gravity of what's going on in our country right now, this work is just incredibly important to the congressman and has impacted our own district. And then on the DC front, I'd like to just notify everyone of this really quick bill that he just introduced called the Showing Up for Students Act. This will give $280 million to the Office of Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Education, and this doubles the funding. This bill will actually help fight discrimination on campuses and also provide more tools and resources for the Office of Civil Rights to investigate these crimes. I apologize. I want to just say apologies again for not being able to make the Meet Your Congressman event. That was supposed to happen a couple of weeks ago, but we will reschedule that. So please be on the lookout for that in the future. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions? None.
Bye. Okay, thank you.
How you guys doing? Roy Ruiz with Assemblymember Deborah Glick's office. Deborah was proud to designate the Village Vanguard to go into the historic business record in the Office of Historic Preservation with the state. And she has a really cool picture there with the owner, Deborah Gordon. So then another thing we did last week when she was in town was we met with the DA's office, which is a really productive and informative meeting on stranger assaults, which is those incidents where people get hurt in the public and also include a broad range of things like bar fights. So it was really cool to learn about the stats on that and also the efforts that the DA's office is doing with like the neighborhood navigators and community based organizations to address that. So yeah, that's pick up one of these outside in the lobby, and thank you.
Any questions? Yes, Rich.
Yes.
Hi, do you know if the Assembly member is supporting Assembly Member Robert Carroll's bill A330 regarding the idea of changing the voting age to 16?
I do not have information on that. But if you send me an email, I'm happy to connect you with our legislative director and he can probably answer that.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you. I don't see any more questions.
I just have a request. If people can leave us their email, is that possible?
Oh, I'm sorry, the Ivy, that was you, that was you. The voice came out of nowhere.
Did she ask?
We will provide you with contact information for every office.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead. Stacy.
Hi, I'm Stacy from Senator Kavanaugh's office. A couple of things right now, at this very moment, Liz Kruger's office is having a virtual event about good cause eviction. You can also watch it later, either on Facebook or YouTube. She has like a YouTube channel. But the senator's speaking briefly at the beginning, and Ellen Davidson, a lawyer from the Legal Aid Society, is answering questions. So if you have questions about good cause eviction, I recommend you seeking out that video. Also, NYCHA is reopening the Section 8 waitlist. So if you know anyone who wants to apply for a Section 8 voucher program, the waitlist has been closed for like 15 years and it's open from June 3rd to June 8th. So just a few days. We hired a new community liaison that's starting in a week and a half who speaks Mandarin and will be covering Chinatown. So we're really excited about that new hire. And just, I'll cherry pick a few bills that Senator Kavanaugh has sponsored and that have passed the Senate. There is one that requires real estate brokers to report on demographic data. There is another one that is there's a compliance required before a foreclosure starts to try to protect people from losing their homes to foreclosure. And there's another one that requires the retailers and manufacturers of rechargeable batteries to have a recycling program, and it includes e-bike batteries, which it didn't, those bills didn't include those types of batteries before. And then just to let you know, the senator's the chair of the Housing Committee, and the Housing Committee had their final Housing Committee meeting this week, and they voted on 80 bills this session, and 16 have already passed the Senate.
Great. Thank you. Are there any questions? And I see no hands online, so that's it.
Hi, I'm Caroline Wexelbaum. I'm from State Senator Brad Hoylman Siegel's office, and Stacy hit on a few of the points I was going to. I just want to let everyone know that Sammy's Law, which allows New York City to set its own speed limits, passed, which is a very big deal. We've been trying to do this for a number of years. Governor signed it. And then I also just wanted to re-up the NYCHA, the affordable housing voucher waiting list that's opening up after 15 years of being closed. So I think that opens on June 2nd. So get ready. And Liz Kruger's town hall about good cause eviction is the same time as the next CB2 full board, which is why we were suggesting watching it afterwards, but I do strongly suggest everyone watch it. There are some fantastic new protections for market rate tenants. We didn't get everything we wanted, but it's definitely worth looking into. And then a small item at the end, which affected me personally, is that if you got a COVID test earlier in the pandemic from a Northwell site, they were charging for emergency visits when they shouldn't have been charging at all. So you might get a little refund. So check out that small item. Are there any questions?
Proceed.
Thank you. Regarding Sammy's Law?
Yeah.
I know I heard all about it, but my question is, does Sammy's Law also limit the speed on e-bikes and all other mobility vehicles that can kill or hurt pedestrians? Does it apply to them too? And it should.
Totally hear you. It does not, as far as I know, it doesn't apply to e-bikes. I'm not sure about motor vehicles that are not cars, but I can double check for you and get back to you if you want to exchange information.
Well, it should, because a lot of people are hurt by e-bikes and all those mobility vehicles that just don't even mind pedestrians coming and they just run over them. People got killed, people get arms broken, legs broken, etc. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have online, I have two more of our reps, Jasper.
Hi, everyone. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. So my name is Jasper Scott. I am representing the office of Assemblymember Lee. Couple updates. First of all, Assemblymember Lee just this week had the privilege of introducing a resolution on the assembly floor to honor the late Don Lee, who was a beloved Chinatown resident, community leader who recently passed away. To commemorate his contributions to New York City and Chinatown. And there's a video of that speech on our social media profiles now. I also would like to plug, we have an event coming up this next Thursday that we're hosting in collaboration with the Manhattan Borough President, Mark Levine. It is an API Heritage Month celebration right at the tail end of May. It will be taking place May 30th. That's next Thursday, May 30th at 5:30 p.m. at 31 Chambers Street. And we can, I'll make sure to send that information to the board. So this is the end of session, the tail end of session for the Assembly and for the Senate. And as everything's wrapping up, a couple of Assemblymember Lee's bills that she has introduced this year have recently passed through committee, bringing them closer to the floor and hopefully being voted on and passed this year. I will cover, there's three of them that we'd like to highlight. One of them is called the Pro Banking Act, and it will require state chartered banks in New York to accept ID NYC as a primary form of identification. ID NYC is a type of municipal ID that's given out to New Yorkers regardless of immigration status. And so this bill will ensure that those New Yorkers can access financial services to help them get on their feet and work in the city. Real quick, I'll just do the second one now. It's called the Stop Hiding Hate Act, and it will basically hold social media companies, large social media companies, accountable for protecting users from hate and other violent and dangerous content that's spread on their platforms, with the intention to make those platforms safer for users. That is all I believe we have time for, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Yes, Carter. We do need a microphone. Just one sec. Go ahead.
I just wanted to point out, and I don't believe it's been mentioned about Don Lee, is that he was also a board member of Community Board 2, and that has not been mentioned. And I just wanted to bring that to everybody here's attention. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very valid point. I think that Simon really touches on that in her speech. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other questions, so we'll go to Andrew Chang. Andrew.
Hi, good evening, everybody. As Andrew from the Manhattan Borough President's Office, as you all may know, you guys have new community board members. So thank you to everyone who applied or reapplied to serve on Manhattan Community Board 2. And thank you to those who are no longer serving. Thank you for your service on the board. So we have 7 new members, including a returning board member. And Arturo, Andres, Juliet, Edward, Benjamin, Stephen, Janet. Congratulations to everybody. Secondly, we wrote a letter to the MTA asking for directions and announcements of which stations have public restrooms for the public to use. There are 30 plus MTA subway stations that have public restrooms, but the public generally does not know, which stations have those public restrooms. So we haven't heard back from the MTA, but hopefully they can respond and implement those changes to inform the public. As Jasper from State Assembly Member Grace Lee's office mentioned, we're co-hosting an AEPI Heritage Month event next Thursday at Surrogates Court. And I guess regarding the rent guidelines board, for those who weren't aware, that the guidelines board which is charged with establishing the level of increase or freeze for rent stabilized units, left Manhattan out of their citywide meeting schedule. So the Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine, along with other elected officials, including Councilmember Keith Powers, wrote to the rent guidelines board to advocate that the borough that has among the highest number of rent stabilized homes that should have this meeting is in Manhattan. So we're happy that the Rent Guidelines Board will now be hosting a meeting in Manhattan, within the Upper West Side on June 11th at the New York Society for Ethical Culture. If you want more details, please reach out to me. And I'll just the borough president also attended Don Lee's memorial service yesterday at Trinity Church. He saw Rocio Sands as well from the Community Board 2, as well as other community members. As Carter mentioned, Don Lee was a former CB2 member, and we're sad that he left this earth too soon. And that's it from our report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Are there any questions? Okay. Yes, Ivy.
So Andrew, I know you have an event on the 30th. I was wondering if your office can send somebody to the town hall that the LGBTQ Center is doing with ACT UP about the budget cuts in health.
Yeah, and thanks. I saw your email a couple hours ago. I will send it to our scheduling team and see if Mark can attend. I'll see, who can attend. Yes, you're right. We do have that event, that
Great.
API event, the same night.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any more questions. Are any other reps online that I haven't noticed? Otherwise, we will move on. Okay, quickly, yes, as Andrew mentioned, we have some new members. We actually have 10 open spots. We received 8 new people. Unfortunately, 2 of them had to decline. So we now have 6 new members. I'd like to introduce them. Andy Diaz. Just stand up so everyone can see for a moment. Thank you. Thank you. And Arturo Fernandez. Janet is she's new, but she's back. Juliet is not with us this evening. Benjamin Listman. And Edward Seagal. Right. I hope if folks are available afterwards, I reached out to these folks, and if we could all get together and maybe have a drink afterwards at Slanja on the Bowery would be lovely. I hope folks are available. Anyway, there will be more opportunities, I'm sure, to meet everyone. 304 Bowery. Yeah. Eventually I'll get there, right? Let's see. So we still have 4 open seats. And the borough president's office is aware of that, so there will be more. I want to thank our first vice chair for hosting and running our onboarding session. I hope everyone found it helpful. Let's see, at Borough Board, we had the presentation, DCP's presentation on City of Yes Housing Opportunity. Basically what we have already seen, except for discussion of special districts and particular things that are particular to each locality. There will be a vote at Borough Board on the borough president's proposal. I have not seen that yet. The timeline that's been given is that there will be a public hearing in July, comments accepted until there's a DCP vote in September, and that this is the changes will be before the city council for a vote at the end of the year. As Andrew also mentioned, there is a rent guidelines board meeting in Manhattan, and that just to mention it, that there will be a deadline for comments is June 11th, the same day as the event. And the last thing, there is a new business item on the schedule. Normally I'd prefer not to treat it as new business, but it literally came in yesterday and the borough president is hoping to send it out tomorrow, which is why it is a new business item. I will discuss it more later. And with that, district manager's report.
Thanks so much. The Borough Service Cabinet, which is kind of the district manager's version of the Borough Board, had a detailed presentation from the Committee on Racial Equity, and there will be new initiatives that will be rolled out in the coming months. We got a preview of it. The not surprising but very important bottom line is that the effort to achieve equity is every agency's business, not just the committees, and they are emphasizing that for us. More on that as we get it. We are in the throes of being registered for something called NYC Learn. All board members, including our new board members, are required to take certain trainings from the Manhattan Borough President's Office. You will hear about that probably in June. This is a platform that's being created by DCAS, the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, through which you will be able to access these trainings. And the good part of it is that many of the trainings that our staff, myself included, are required to take cannot be accessed from our office because even though we consider it a government office, the city intranet does not. So anyway, so this is once it finally works, and it doesn't yet, it will be a net positive. Let me see. I think the other thing that I want to focus on is that there is a group of district managers that get together once a month and compare notes across all 5 boroughs, not just the Manhattan ones. It is called the Future of Community Boards. I didn't name it. We had a very productive session with council members Ressler and Hanif, and I'm sorry, I'm missing the third, on the Government Operations Committee, having to do with the ways in which community boards are or are not resourced. No commitments, no next steps as yet, but it was wonderful to have a really welcome reception about what we see on the operational side from a council member who clearly cares. There were 7 or 8 of us that spoke in 15 minutes, and he rattled off a response to every single point that each of us raised. So it was a clearly engaged opportunity to present on core issues about how we operate as a community board, and all of these things that we were bringing up impact our ability to serve you and to serve the public. And so I'm encouraged by that. I think that's good enough for, one last thing as administrative detail. You will see on your calendar that we are now focusing on when the board package for the full board meeting is put together. And this is in part an open meetings law issue because we're supposed to have it on our website within a certain amount of time before the meeting. Unfortunately for us, our next full board meeting is June 20th, which means that the board package is being put together on June 19th. And of course, that's Juneteenth. So Juneteenth is actually a city holiday. So anybody who can get their materials to us on the 18th, I don't know, maybe there'll be a district manager gold star or something, but it would be wonderful if we could get that together as much as possible because the staff will, of course, have the day off. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mark. That brings us to the end of the public session. So we are now going into business session. So it is time for our next roll call vote.
You ready for me? Susan?
No.
Susan, I've lost. Just wait if I can talk.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chanel. Go right ahead.
There were two landmark.
Sorry,
committee
the
meetings.
roll call vote is next.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't quite get to landmarks. We need a roll call vote at the start of business session. Do you need another microphone?
That one sounds good. Okay. Roll call vote. Susanna Aaron. Keen Berger. Carter Booth. Katie Bordenaro. Anita Brandt. Beautiful. Amy Brenna. Rich Kakapolo. Ritu Chatri. Is there-
Present.
Thank you. Valerie De La Rosa. Andres Diaz. Chris Dignas. Arturo Fernandez. Mark Fitzgerald. Cormac Flynn. Susan Gammy. David Gruber. Ann Hager. I believe
Here.
it's still on Zoom. Thanks.
Here.
Ann.
Yep.
Susan Kent.
Here.
Ryder Kessler. Janine Kiley. Thank you. Ivy Quanars.
Here.
Patricia Laria. Michael Levine. Janet Liff. Benjamin Listman. Ed Ma.
Here.
Thank you. Matthew Metzger. Brian Pape. Lois Rakoff. Rocio Sands. Shirley Secunda.
Here.
Thank you. Edward Siegel. Frederica Siegel. Emma Smith is here. Dr. Shirley Smith. Chenault Spence.
Here.
Susan Wittenberg. And that's that. Thanks, folks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for next item, approval of the April full board minutes. Does anyone have anything that they need to point out or there are issues they have with them? Okay, seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve. And a second. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Next, is there anything on the calendars that someone has questioned about? Otherwise, I will move forward. Okay, now we are ready to go to our committee meeting reports. And Chenault, you are up.
Okay. Sorry, you were cutting in and out a bit. I'm ready. We had two meetings. I suppose we have to treat them separately because the first one lacked a quorum. Number one for the first meeting, 155 Sullivan Street, to legalize the installation of HVAC in front of a primary facade, install movable planters, relocate and replace statuary, pave the courtyard, and install signage. This is St. Anthony of Padua Church, the little garden on Houston Street. We recommend approval. We recommend approval of the planter with evergreens to mask the HVAC equipment. Approval of the shrine, provided that it is covered in a natural stone similar to the pictures of the historic shrines provided with the application. Approval of the paving of the garden, provided that it is a natural stone that is in harmony with the rustic stone base of the north facade of the nave. Approval of the modification of the fence to provide ADA access to the garden. Approval of the relief lettering and the lighting fixtures on the tower. And all those present were in favor. 512 Broadway, to legalize the installation of signage without LPC permits. Recommend that the application for the large bright LED display sign be denied and that any replacements are considerably smaller, less bright, do not emit light into the street, and appear as screens behind the windows rather than filling the window. Again, unanimous for those there. 550 Broadway, the application to legalize exterior wall signs and double-faced banner installed without LPC permits for the ground floor tenant. Recommend approval of the application of the sign over the store entrance and the banner, provided that LPC staff affirm that they strictly conform to applicable regulations. 7074 Gansevoort Street, to install new signage with lighting, modify storefront infill signage, and modify the marquee roofing and add lighting at the Gansevoort Street and Washington Street facades. Recommend approval of the modifications to the infill, the security grates, the illuminated entry sign, the marquee and the banner signs, and security cameras, and that the installation of the metal roof of the marquee be denied, but the glass covering the marquee left in place. The installation of the contemporary excessive globe lighting to be denied, and that the lighting be modest number of lights with historical reference with respect to the design of the fixtures and the quality of the light. Susan Gammon would like to be recognized to offer an amendment to one of these.
Okay, are you finished?
Yeah, that's all of the applications at this meeting.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, Susan, which item do you have a proposed amendment?
550 Broadway, it's just a simple tweak to the resolution after it says conforming to applicable regulations. I would like to suggest that we add including but not limited to LPC rules section 2-13.
Okay, is there any discussion of that proposal?
This
Okay.
will cover the item brought up in the public session.
Okay, yes, Valerie. Okay,
I have a separate amendment.
for that same item?
The same item, and I actually think that my language is stronger, so I would.
Okay, so
will
let's
be
talk
talking
about
about
them if they're
specific-
for the same item together. So why don't you go ahead?
Great, I'm gonna actually share my screen. I'm a visual person. I actually think this is stronger, so let me. Great, so we can maybe, for people in the room, if you could move that, yeah, if you could move that so we can read everything. So I have the original language on here that says approval of the application for the sign over the store entrance and the banner, provided that LPC staff affirm that they strictly conform to the applicable regulations. Well, the regulations, Susan had one of those in hers, and so what I've done here is I've said that we should deny the application for the banner over the store because the banner far exceeds what is in the rules. So it's out there what it is and what is proposed, and this is for something that exists already. And then the denial of the application for the sign over the store entrance because the sign is nearly twice the allowable amount as stated in the rules of LPC. Oops, that's on there twice there. So here is the proposed language for one of those, and this is the drawing provided. So I've just, because the numbers are very small, I've highlighted there what those measurements are so everyone can read them. And then here is the LPC rules that shows that it exceeds the 24 inches and the 36 inches. So I think we make a stronger statement by showing that telling them that as long as it's in the regulations, they're right here. So why are we proposing language that's not as strong and is going to set a terrible precedent for this historic district? So that is there. I'm happy to send this around. This is just where this came from. I added the red arrows remind. And then the proposed language for the sign. Again, this drawing is very light Timberland sign there, but it's showing the 7.5 inches from the facade when it's 4 inches. Sorry, I didn't get the red line here in time. It's the third line here. It says the total projection of 4 inches, and they are showing us one that's 7. Yes. So, anyways, that's the proposed language.
Now, since we have the second one, if are you prepared to withdraw your amendment, your proposal, so, and then we can consider this one otherwise, because we have the second?
Sure.
Okay, so that one has been withdrawn. So we have one amendment on the floor. Is there any discussion of that amendment? If not, then we can vote on it. All those, yes. Oh, yeah, use the mic up.
It's on, okay.
Yeah.
Do we usually make exceptions to that 24 by 36 rule? Well, I'm just looking at the picture, and there's this like large Banana Republic banner in the background. So is this like a standard that everybody's held to, or are we just? Because like in the slide that they submitted, right? You see a
I can't hear the question.
He is asking if we make exceptions to this.
We in general do not. We don't usually say the number and name of the rule, but certainly the other is a typical thing that we would say. And but it's not up to us to determine whether the rule should be accepted in some case or other. And generally, as much as we understand the rules, we ask that they be observed. And then there's some leeway, but not a great deal actually with the commission to adhering to that.
Yeah, I guess so. Just following up, just looking at this.
Particularly with something like this, generally the rules are adhered to because it's not something that has to do with the structure of the building.
So again, just looking at the picture that they provided where they show like the Timberland logo banner that's far smaller than the Banana Republic banner in the background.
Can you speak into a microphone, please?
May not be working well enough.
Again, I would also state too, is that you're looking at, there's a foreshortening that happens in photography as well. So that's also could be the perspective of the way that photograph was taken. I'm not looking at that directly, but just throwing that out there.
It's much bigger. Okay.
I would like, along the lines of what I said, I'd like to request that the one before what's before us just be changed to essentially leave out the citing the rule itself, twice the allowable amount permitted by regulations. That will conform to what we have always done with these sorts of things.
But it's stating, so I think he's saying on the language, I think it's still up. So Chanel, are you saying to remove where it says because the sign is nearly twice?
No, not at all. Just to not to cite the, we don't generally cite because we don't know it, and just to be consistent, the actual
but we do
name
now
of
because
the
I
rule.
looked it up.
Okay, but we do have.
The stated amount of
Okay,
in the
Chanel,
rule.
please, we have an amendment on the floor. It's a question of, do people want to accept it or not? If it's not accepted, then I can ask you whether or not you have a second proposal. There is no such thing as a friendly amendment. Okay, hold on a second. I'm sorry. Janine, did you have yeah, I saw your hand up. Thank you. Okay, we have discussion. Yes. Correct. Any other discussion on that? Okay.
But I have another item to discuss on another.
But that's another resolution. Let's first deal with what's on the floor. And the floor, it is just this amendment. So all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions or recusals? Okay, so that resolution is now as amended. Now, does anyone want to call out any of the other resolutions? Brian?
Yeah. Thank you. The first item, 155 Sullivan, my recollection of the resolution, letter B, the approval of the shrine, provided that it is covered in natural stone. My recollection is that
Susan, I can't hear.
in harmony with the rusticated stone base. Similar wording to letter C, approval. And my question to Chenault or other committee members is that something that you would agree to?
Susan, I cannot hear what's being said.
Okay, you're not, I don't know, you're not loud enough, I guess, into the microphone. He cannot agree to anything. You have to make an amendment. You're proposing an amendment to the language.
I'm proposing an amendment to 155 Sullivan, resolve, recommend approval of the shrine, provided it is covered in a natural stone that is in harmony with the rusticated stone base of the north facade of the nave. That is my recollection. and
That is what
recommendation.
number C, that's what C says currently.
That is what C says currently at the end of the sentence. I am adding that language to item B.
I see. I see. So that language will appear in both B and C.
Correct.
In what two sections?
In the 155 Sullivan Street
Right.
resolution, the language that appears at the end of item C, that it's in a harmony with rusticated stone base of the north facade, that same language should also appear in B after provided with the application that it is in a natural stone. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Does that make sense, Chenault? Do you understand what he's just adding?
Yeah, E is where it's
Language?
added, right?
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? Because that's.
I don't object to that.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I know, I like that, yeah.
Okay. Good. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions or recusals? Okay, 155 is now amended. Are there anyone want to call out any of the other resolutions in that group? Otherwise, we will take items 1 through 4 as a group. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions or recusals? Okay, that's the first meeting. The second one, yes, you may.
May I just say that for these sorts of things, it is very helpful if people will let me know in advance, and just so that I understand what's happening with resolutions, amendments, and we can talk about it, perhaps craft it a little differently or a little better before it's brought to the board using less time.
Okay. And then from the second meeting, the 44
Okay.
West.
The second meeting had a no, did we do the proper thing for there not being a quorum?
You did have a quorum for that.
Susan's fading now.
Well, I mean, in the sense that yes, you noted that it didn't have a
Okay.
quorum, but we still, the board voted on it, so it is still, they're still valid resolutions.
The second meeting was a separate meeting because of the demolition and new building, and that always takes time. 44 West 8th Street, application to demolish the existing building and construct a new 5-story and penthouse building. Approval of the demolition of the existing non-contributing building. Approval of the ground floor apart from the bulkhead provided that any additional signage be reviewed by the Landmarks Commission's staff or at the CB2 public hearing. Denial of the 8-inch bulkhead and recommend that it be higher in keeping with the usual historic proportion. Denial of the modern style brick and recommend that the brick of a more historic proportion be used. Approval apart from the size of the brick of the design of the upper facade, the windows, the penthouse, and the rear facade.
Is there any discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions or recusals? Thank you. Thank you, Chenault. Next is outdoor dining.
Great, I'll just do it from here. So we have the outdoor dining working group met last night, and we had 3 applications before us. We will be voting on 2 resolutions this evening. Let me just go to the resolutions here. So we have 1 application to DOT for a sidewalk cafe. This is for Mannequin Corp, AKA it does business as Oscar's Place at 466 Hudson Street with 6 tables and 12 chairs. I'm not going to read all of the where as is. If you have any questions, we can talk about them. But we split our comments into what is being asked of us to review, which is the physical footprint and dimensions, the pedestrian flow, and potential conflicts with existing curb use. And therefore be it resolved, Manhattan CB2 recommends approval of the Dining Out NYC Sidewalk Cafe for Mannequin Corp, DBA Oscar's Place, 466 Hudson Street, because the applicant's proposed site plan and application form as referred by DOT are accurate and complete. Any questions on that one? Okay. Do you want to just go through the second one? Okay, and then okay. The second one is an application to DOT for a roadway cafe. This is West 10 West LLC, DBA West 10 West, 242 West 10th Street, 10014 with 3 tables and 6 chairs. Again, this is for a roadway cafe, and we have split the comments into what is being asked of us, which is the physical footprint and dimensions, the pedestrian flow and potential conflicts with existing curb use. We're also asked on roadway cafes to give an overall recommendation and any suggested modifications for the cafe setup. To quickly, if you're kind of confused maybe on let me read the therefore be it resolved, and then I'll quickly say some comments. Therefore be it resolved, Manhattan CB2 recommends submitting the comments as stated above to DOT regarding the Dining Out NYC Roadway Cafe for West 10 West LLC, DBA West 10 West, 242 West 10th Street, 10014. Both of these were unanimous. We have also added a new committee member, Brian Pape, to the working group. So on sidewalk cafes, it is a review period, and we are asked to give one of 3 in addition to these comments that they've specifically asked for, DOT. We are to either approve with modifications, or deny. On a roadway cafe application, there is no approve with modifications or deny. There's no checkbox for that, so we don't give any sort of that. We're just presenting to you the comments we're going to submit. Any questions on any of those?
No questions? Okay.
Are these comments from the committee specifically?
I'm sorry, comments from
The comments that you're submitting to DOT are from the
So
committee?
let me kind of clear up the word comment for you. So comment is the language that DOT has on the form that we fill out for them. So it's used very loosely here. This is not a verbal transcript of what was said. It's just kind of a summary of the discussion, as well as pointing out highlights from the applications. And the applications are on the CB2 website if anyone's interested. Yes, microphone, please.
Oh, there's a microphone right there.
Thanks for, this is like new territory for us. And
It is very new territory. Yes.
Congratulations on paving the way. I just wonder, you know, we're used to seeing resolutions that approve or deny, and I understand that you're saying that in roadway dining, the city is not asking us to approve or deny, but just submit comments. It's hard for us looking at the resolution, sitting at a meeting to read through all those comments. Is there a way to summarize?
I'm sure, I'm happy to
No, I don't need you to do that now. I'm just wondering going forward as a methodology, as we see these in the future, will you have some sort of succinct thing that allows us to understand whether our position is, whether the city or not requests us to approve, deny, or approve modifications? Is there a way that you might be able to summarize that in that framework so that we can understand the conclusion that this board is ultimately arriving at? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I would say on the overall recommendation and we're saying on this particular one, there is missing information. So this application was not complete and accurate, but we're not here to judge that on an approval or denial basis. So as we know, these are all as of right. So we've outlined, and I've tried to keep these succinct. I think this was 4 pages total for 2 resolutions. One is a report, but we've stated on West 10th Street, which is a neighborhood corridor. All of the different corridor language that is on here is referring to the classification from the city, DOT's pedestrian mobility plan, the pedestrian demand map. And so with that are all sorts of clear path requirements and the dining out NYC rules. So we've stated on here the different uses of that street with an MTA bus route, with all of these things that should be considered. But we are not being asked to approve or deny. So that's why.
Okay. So in other words, this board will not be approving or denying this. We are just submitting comments because these are as of right.
For roadway, there is no approval or deny or approve with modifications box. Now there are those boxes. I'll call in you just a second. There are those boxes on the sidewalk cafe form, and DOT will take our comments in that form, go to the applicant and say, either you agree to approve with modifications, or the applicant will acknowledge the modifications on a sidewalk cafe and choose not to follow them. And then DOT, either way, approve with modifications or a denial on a sidewalk cafe triggers a DOT public hearing, which
Okay, thank you.
increases.
I'm sorry to.
It's okay. Oh, no, I'm just kind of.
Everyone to ask you for,
No, that's
you a
fine.
long explanation.
No, that's fine.
Thanks so much for the consideration that you give to this and all the clear thinking. It's a new practice for us. So I had some questions. Thank you.
Carter.
I was just gonna say, because we talked about this, Susanna, just to your point, there are 4 boxes. We have to fill them in and send them back.
Yeah.
We anticipate 700 to 1,000 applications. So it's just filling out what goes in each box, put into resolution form. It's not perfect, but that's what actually gets submitted.
Yeah, and then to quickly close the loop on a DOT public hearing, every roadway cafe application will have a DOT public hearing regardless of what the community board says. So that's just across the city. So yes. Any other questions?
Okay, so if there are no more questions or.
And I will quickly, and my report is we have a 3rd application that we will be discussing at our next meeting.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
it's not part of.
It's not
Got
part
it.
of that. So just number 1 and 2 is what
1
we're
and 2.
voting on.
If there's no opposition, we will vote on 1 and 2 together. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions or recusals? Thank you. Next is schools.
Hi, Patricia Laria, Chair of Schools in Ed. At our recent school and education meeting, we heard from Vote 16 NYC NYS, a grassroots organization committed to increasing civic participation among 16 and 17-year-olds by advocating for their right to vote in state and local elections. Senator Brad Hoylman Siegel's bill, S 2562, pending in the state Senate, would amend Section 1 of Article 2 of the New York State Constitution, allowing 16-year-olds to vote in state and local elections and require 8 hours of civic education in high schools. Prominent local supporters, including Assembly Member Robert C. Carroll, who has introduced a companion bill, A 330, Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine, Queensborough President Donovan Richards, Councilmember Gail Brewer, and Councilmember Christopher Marte are also supporters of it. 8 community boards across Manhattan, the Bronx, and Brooklyn have already endorsed this initiative. Lowering the voting age offers several advantages, including giving employed teenagers the same political matters as taxpayers without representation, introducing civic education in high schools, boosting overall voter turnout, and fostering lifelong civic engagement habits. Studies indicate that adolescents age 16 and above possess the capacity to make well-informed decisions and possess a deep understanding of local issues, rendering them competent voters. For over a decade, 16-year-olds have been voting members of New York City's community boards, showing their capacity for meaningful participation in local government, in governance. Therefore, be it resolved, Community Board 2 calls on the New York State Legislature to pass and New York State voters to approve S 2562 and A 330, which would amend the state constitution to lower the voting age for state and local elections to 16. The vote was 6-1 in favor.
Okay, we've got some hand. Ryder. What? We haven't heard from you yet, so you get to go first.
Thanks. And, I guess I'm reluctant to talk first because I'm quite torn about this, but I also wanted to talk because I work in voting rights professionally, the new member, many of you might not know this, but the new members especially, and I am conventionally a voter protection director, which is that my job is to make sure everyone eligible can register to vote, that they can vote, and that the votes get counted. And so my instinct is to think that more enfranchisement is good, full stop, but I'm actually quite torn about this because I don't know that this is critical democracy policy. It's certainly not urgent New York democracy and ballot access policy. New York has really bad voting rights laws. We tried to amend our constitution in 2021 to legalize same-day voter registration and no excuse absentee voting, which are both standard practice in most states nationwide, but are illegal in by our state constitution. We also have very impoverished boards of election that are not professionalized. We have a lot of problems, and we couldn't pass those constitutional amendments in spite of how broadly those policies are implemented nationwide. They failed both by double digits. And so when I think about where to invest our time and energy on advocating for expanded ballot access and enfranchisement in New York State, I don't think 16 and 17-year-old voting is where the focus should be. Another thought is just like, okay, well, putting that aside, is it good or bad? So I've been all day polling my friends who work in voting rights and democracy, asking, is this good? And I've gotten mixed responses. And I think it just goes to show that, I understand that Generation Citizen focuses on youth civic engagement, but looking at the democracy space broadly and the kind of policies that professionals in this space are advocating to strengthen American democracy, this is not something that is salient. So I'm still quite torn about it. I'm not sure how I'm going to vote on it, but I wanted to offer that context from my professional vantage point. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
I guess the question is, would passing this, which is actually at the state level and potentially could be voted on in the next week, would that prevent any of these other reforms from happening?
No. I mean, only insofar as it might crowd out attention and investment from pro-democracy groups, like, the groups that advocated for the amendments that failed in 2021. They did a lot of, campaigning for those, not as much as the Republican and Conservative Party spent against them. and the Democratic Party didn't spend any money to support them, but I'm not going to editorialize about that. But the banner had to be carried by the democracy groups. And so insofar as there's limited resources, I think it could have an adverse impact. I'll also note that, this would allow, if this constitutional amendment passed, which would require passing in 2 subsequent state legislative sessions and then going on the ballot, it would allow these youth to vote in New York elections, but it wouldn't count towards like federal elections. So they couldn't vote for Congress. And I think there's some good evidence that, voting certainly is a habit. And if 16 and 17-year-olds can get into that habit, that's good. But I think there's a potential negative externality if they go to the polls and could vote for mayor, but couldn't vote for Congress, and that there's some potential consequences to that confusion and kind of the essential disenfranchisement that would come by trying to exercise their rights to fill out a full ballot, but being restricted in some way.
Susanna.
I don't feel that I can support this resolution. I guess because without the professional experience that we've just heard, suffrage seems like a very big deal. And I don't know that 16-year-olds are prepared to do it. The fact that they work and get taxed, it doesn't seem to me a really good reason for allowing them to vote. 14-year-olds also can work. I mean, unless we think that 14-year-olds should be allowed to vote. But I think what troubles me most is that the presentation that you guys received was from an advocate. And so I have not seen enough information to have an opinion about this because I haven't heard anyone offer reasons why 16-year-olds shouldn't vote. And yet we regard suffrage as a very precious thing. There are plenty of ways for 16-year-olds to get involved in political life and civic life. I don't know that voting is the reason to do that. I don't know that voting is required in order to do that. So I feel like this is too big a deal for me to just hear from advocates about it. And I will vote against this resolution for that reason.
We have more. Could you just get the microphone that way? Amy, and then Dr. Smith, and then.
Yeah,
Kate.
thanks for bringing this in front of us. I really appreciate it. I totally hear what you're saying, and I'm not an expert on that. I'm going to give a slightly different.
Okay.
I'm
Close, yeah, keep it to your mouth. Yeah.
I'm going to keep a slightly different perspective, having worked professionally with adolescents and young adults at 2 nonprofits. A lot of young people, their voices do need to be heard. They are silenced and they are ignored, partly because of their age, partly because of their situation. And I think this would be given opportunity for a lot of people who what happens to them when they're teenagers can affect the rest of their life as far as social services and supports. So they deserve to have a voice, I think. I also think some of the concerns about adolescence and neurological development are well-grounded, but I can make the same arguments about adults. I think we see a lot of adults who demonstrate the same kinds of personality traits and sometimes irregular decision-making, and they get to vote. So I'm not too worried about that. I guess my question for you would be, it says that they're going to propose civic engagement training at high schools, which I think would be totally, really important, right? But there's a lot of things that are in the, as you would know about this, like sex education, that are supposed to be taught in high schools and never are. So is there funding included in this bill to ensure that the civic engagement education will occur?
There is no funding, and it's still in committee. There is no funding. I didn't see it.
I'm going to support this, even though I respect everything everyone said who is not supporting it.
Okay. No, the microphone, please. Dr. Smith was
Yeah.
next.
Dr. Smith was waiting.
Dr. Smith was next, and then Katie, and then I'll go back to Susan, and then we will work our way around.
I definitely will
Sorry.
support it. First of all, when you think about young people who are disenfranchised, they're disenfranchised particularly because no one generally cares about what they think. And also, they have to be able to make up their minds and critically about who they're going to vote for, and voting for people that will have their interest at heart. So I'm definitely in favor. In fact, as a member of the New York Academy of Public Education, we honored the chancellor a couple of nights ago. And 2 things that he said that he was going to do, of course, if you've been you've been alive and know what's going on. One of his main things was literacy, which I definitely support. But he's going to have now mandate civic lessons that will be taught in schools. This will give young people a very good idea, one, of what their rights are, what their responsibilities are as it relates to being a good citizen. I'm from the South originally, and civics was required for us in high school. And what I think it does, even if you're disenfranchised, it gives you an opportunity to know, one, you are a citizen, you have rights, and you have responsibilities. So I think that this is a great idea, and I'm definitely going to support it.
Thank you. I would like to add that the funding would come from the Department of Education for civics education.
Okay. Katie was next,
just
and then I will
wanted-
go to, and then I will go to you,
I
Susan.
just
And
wanted to ask Ryder a very technical question. Are they going to have to be given separate ballots or, how? Separate ballots. Okay, thank you.
okay, Susan?
Hi, I have a comment and question. Local, turnout in local elections is so low that I think that anything that can increase the number of people who vote is an incredibly important thing, and combining that with learning and civic engagement could be really transformative. I wondered who initiated this? I mean, are that age group, the 16-year-old and 17-year-old, does this come from them, speaking out and saying, we want to vote? Or, I mean, that was one thing I didn't understand from what you presented.
It was this Vote 16 grassroots organization that started this, and I believe they were working with Gail. They've been working with a lot of elected officials.
Okay.
Yeah, and I believe they were in conversations with Brad as well. That's why he wrote that bill.
Okay.
And it's still in committee.
Okay, why don't you pass the mic behind you? So Chris, oh, wait, two, okay. No, you only get one mic.
So just to add on to Susan's thing, I think the civics test itself is just showing up to vote as a 16-year-old. I think that's enough. And then the second part, I don't know if I don't drive on the highway a lot, but 16-year-olds are allowed to do that. I think that's easily the most dangerous thing you can do as a part of society. So if we can trust them not to kill each other on the highway, we can maybe trust them to show up and vote. But I'm voting yes, is all I'm saying.
Okay. And you can't keep both microphones, and we do need them back
Try
this
me.
way.
I will.
Yes, Lois is next, or Lois is next, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Being a high school teacher, formerly retired, but dealing with a lot of 16 and 17-year-olds in public high school. Two questions. How will their citizenship for New York State be established? What is the criteria? That's the first question. And the second question is, can you tell us more about, did you say 8 hours of civic? Now, 8 hours does not constitute a semester. So I would like to know more details about, is it after school? Is it before school? Is it on a Saturday or a Sunday? Could you give more information on those two questions?
To your second part, because this bill is still in committee, I don't have the details on that. About their citizenship, I would.
The same way probably that all
Yeah.
people's citizenship would be.
Here. I was gonna say, I just, my.
So
18
17-year-olds are already you can pre-register. So the same way they do for everybody, because they're humans.
Yeah, and my 18-year-old just registered to vote. You fill out the form. Nobody asks for ID or anything, so it's no different.
Okay, that was answer to my question. You don't need an ID for that. Okay, so let's go back to those 8 hours. So do you have any more information of where, when, and how it's going to be conducted?
It would
the 8 hours
be-
of
the
the
8 hours
civics.
would be done through the Department of Education.
Yes, but is
But
it
I-
during semester
I would
or
as- I would
during the
hope it would
day
be
or?
during the semester.
But is it during their, thank you, Mar. Is it during, Mar? Is it
So-
during the
okay,
day?
Okay, please.
The legislation, the proposed legislation does not give specifics beyond 8 hours. We also believe that that was not at all adequate. We also realized that there would have to be funding attached to it, but we didn't want to get into the weeds. So we said that's another resolution for another day. This is the way legislation often works. It goes through, then they go and find the money, and that'll be something we can support in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next question. Okay, you will be next.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that I wholeheartedly support this. I don't think we have to be ageist about, people who are eligible to vote, because that can go both ways. And when we think about who voters are and who politicians cater to and prioritize, I think it's important to keep young people in mind, right? It seems wrong to deny young people the ability to help determine their future. So, I mean, we're kind of talking about young people in the abstract, but I remember when I was a middle school student, high school student, I was very involved in politics. I was going to Sacramento to lobby on different forms of legislation to get funding for college preparation programs, for student MESA, all sorts of things that, support young people. At the time, I was undocumented, so I would not have been eligible to vote anyways. But, if people have that capacity and willingness and conviction, I think, the people of this age, 16 and 17, are more than qualified to determine for themselves how they feel about something and what the elected official that they want to be to enact and execute on that should be.
Thank you. Valerie, please.
Just have a rhetorical question. I guess it's not really to be answered, but, and I don't know, I don't have the training of Ryder and his policy work, but does it mean then like a 16-year-old is gonna like co-host a fundraiser, or is like, can if they're an eligible voter, right? I mean, this is really just thinking rhetorically. I don't know what I'm doing on, I don't know how I'm going to vote on this. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
mean-
not call out though.
Are there any other questions?
What, I have one more. What's the age of consent in New York State?
17.
17.
Thank you.
There are 2 questions online.
I know, I have,
I
okay,
have Brian has
Well,
the mic.
I just want to say, I am shocked to learn that civics isn't taught in schools.
okay.
And I think that's a very essential
Please,
point.
now we do have, okay, Chenault has raised his hand, so I would like to
essential
recognize.
Part of the legislation that we should support.
Thank you. Chenault. And
No,
then Anne.
It seems to me a little bit inconsistent to require the civic education, which implies it's to prepare one to vote and then vote at the same time. Driver's ed precedes the driver's license. The other thing is it seems very odd that since we elect 2 branches of government, that one could vote for one and not the other. I'm not suggesting we can change the federal law, but there's something out of sync about voting for the legislature, but not the presidency. Thank you.
Well, I think the divide has nothing to do with its legislature or executive. It's a question of state versus federal. It would require a US constitutional amendment to change the voting age as it did.
I understand.
So, okay, Anne.
But still,
I'm
the point holds that through the thread of it is not consistent.
Anne.
I know that with these resolutions, people don't really get to read necessarily and follow all the links. So I wanted to point out that some of the links in the resolution talk about what the results have been in other places where they have implemented this. And one of the things that I found in doing the research, not just from the presenter, but online, was that not only was there a larger voter turnout in this age group than there was in the 18 to 24 age group, but also it continued. So if we're thinking about increasing voter turnout and that being a huge issue nationally, this was one way that they've shown that over time we can increase the share of voters. One of the things Emma brought up was that we have a lot of transient voters, 18 to 24. People are moving all over. Absentee voting is difficult. Those things I think add an extra bar. And when you have the younger voters that get in the habit of doing it, I think it makes it more likely that they'll continue. And it seems that the studies have shown that.
Thank you. Yes, Ryder.
So I just want to comment one last thing, which is just that I so appreciate the board's interest in enfranchisement, and especially to Susan's point about turnout, it is so low. And I just hope that folks here attend, and maybe as a board, we can promote some of the other policies that are more actively being debated right now. For example, beyond the amendments I mentioned, there is also the potential to legalize New York City having its own elections in even years alongside every other election. That was outlawed in the state constitution at the end of the 19th century to depress turnout to protect incumbents. And that's one of the big reasons we have such low turnout. We also, New York City passed a non-citizen voting law that would have allowed non-citizens to vote in municipal elections, but it's currently stopped because of the courts. That would be a great thing to pass an amendment about. So I guess I'm still not sure how I'm going to vote on this one, but I guess I just think I love the fact that we are invested in increasing turnout, increasing civic engagement, increasing ballot access and enfranchisement. And I just would draw attention to the many very live discussions about policies that are more at the forefront of potential passage and implementation that I think also would have a more immediate return in terms of strengthening New York's democracy.
Okay, your hand is still up. Is that enough? Okay, that's a mistake. Is there anything else? Otherwise, yes, Rich.
Just a clarification on the process, because it wasn't clear to me in the committee meeting, and Ryder just said, does this, is the process as follows? Is the process that it gets raised in the Senate and the Assembly, and then if it were to pass both, it would become a ballot initiative?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So why are
It
we-
passes
yeah.
as pieces of legislation, but then it has to be voted on as a constitutional amendment.
Okay, well, not, yeah, okay. I voted no, and I'll vote in committee, I'll vote no again today. Part of that was process and part of it was the proposal. I really I think this requires significant debate, and I just don't see that it has had it. I don't know our representatives' positions. I don't know why Deborah isn't supporting it, and I don't know why Brad's representative didn't bring it up. I just haven't heard from them. And I don't see why we need to express an opinion now if it has to go through 2 cycles and then will be a ballot initiative. The second issue is I really don't have any understanding of whether or not 16 and 17-year-olds are in a position or are well positioned to vote. I think voting is the key to functional democracy. I just don't know if they're prepared. I just don't know if they possess the knowledge required to make an educated decision about their representation. And I'm very concerned about the effect that social media plays in their decision making, which I think at age 16 is quite emotional. And I just need more to vote yes on this. I worry that their votes would reflect an emotional tendency influenced by social media more than it would be real consideration of the issues that would affect them.
We've got a couple of. Okay, but we do have to, but we do have to call the question. How many hands do we have who want to speak on this? Because it is, okay. Amy, briefly, I've got 1, I've got 2, and then we do need to move on.
I'm going to make this very brief. Thank you for your thoughts, Rich, and for describing why you voted against it. I would say that coming out with an opinion now will help support getting this through committee. So there's plenty of time. We can always change. You know, as more information comes out, we could come out later against it if we really felt that was necessary. But right now, if we think this is worth considering so that young people who make life and death decisions every day across the city have a voice to be heard, maybe we should vote yes.
Okay. I'm going to take Janine. I will take Carter.
I'm just going to speak as a parent to a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old. You know, some kids are influenced by social media, some are not. Some 25-year-olds make dumb decisions, some don't. The prefrontal cortex, I'll defer to Keen, but it develops by 24. We're not saying you can't vote until then. So, you know, I've stood outside of polling stations at the legal side, and so many people show up and don't even know who they're voting for, and you can sway them as they're walking in. So the fact that there's an assumption that all voters are educated is a big assumption, and I think we should support people voting.
I did call on Carter. I just want to remind everybody, it is 8:55. So point of information. Go ahead, Carter.
I really appreciate what Ryder has brought up, because one of the most important things here when we speak with a resolution on an item that is not brought to the board, but something that we choose on our own to bring up, is its importance. And there's so many other important issues that Ryder addressed that we're not calling for that have to do with the very heart of this issue. And when we pass a resolution on this, we are asking our elected officials to prioritize this issue over others. And I think that that in and of itself is something that we as a board need to think about when we do take up issues that are brought to us. And I would not have thought this, and people have brought up many other issues, but Ryder really clarified, you know, voter access is one of the fundamental issues here. And to speak on just this sole item at the expense of all these other very important issues, I think is a big, requires some significant introspection, because we're asking our state elected officials to put all their attention into this and ask them questions about it when there are so many other important issues that would make a larger difference in the short term. And that's what I have to say.
Going on.
Are we still taking questions?
So we support things or give our opinion about things every day here at this community board. And I would hate to think that supporting one thing would negate any other. This is the Schools and Education Committee, and we deal with kids and their education and their lives. So, you know, that's why we did this one. I don't know what committee would work on the even years. I know personally, and in other organizations I am a member of, I actually have passed resolutions on that and uplifted that. And we don't only have to solely do that work in the community board. All of us, like Ryder, we do it in our everyday lives, wherever we can. We are advocates across the board. So this is a schools committee. We're dealing with this, civic education, right to vote legislation. That was our mandate. That's what we did. I am happy to work on any other amendments that we want to uplift in any committee. I am happy to do that. Oh, and they used to say women, and some people still do, are too emotional to vote.
Can we make this work?
Yeah.
We don't want to get locked out here.
Okay. I want to just say a couple of things. There are a lot of brilliant 16-year-olds. There are a lot of dumb 16-year-olds. There are a lot of brilliant 25-year-olds and 50-year-olds and a lot of really stupid ones. That's fine. But we do have a reason why we have an age to vote. Otherwise, I mean, I know a lot of brilliant 12-year-olds. And the question becomes, at what point is a person too young to vote? Is there such a thing as a person being too young to vote? I also want to say, I agree that lots of young people need to be heard. There are many ways to be heard. And a vote is not just about their own life. A vote affects my life too. I wonder what the practical reasons are for pushing this forward. What could the consequences be? Is this, we do nothing about what the possible consequences would be. And one other thing, there's been a lot of emphasis on civics education tonight. The legislation language says nothing about civic education. Not the ones that were linked to in the resolution.
I'm deferring to the chair.
Yeah, I'm gonna call the question because otherwise we're gonna get locked out of it. Dr. Smith, okay. I'm sorry, you calling the question?
She's calling the question. She's calling the question.
That may be pointless if there are no other hands. Okay, is there any objection to voting? Thank you.
Is this
All
a roll
those in
call?
Favor,
Aye.
opposed?
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
Is this a
No,
roll
no,
call?
aye for the question.
It's not clear from the voice.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Susanna Aaron, Keen Berger, Carter Booth, would you like me to, is that protocol? If folks on the Zoom hear the votes in the room, or would you like me to repeat them back? Okay, I think that's a nod for repeat back. All right. I will do that moving forward. Thanks, Susanna. No, I appreciate it. No, thank you. We're going to start from the top. Susanna Aaron? Nay. Keen Berger? Yes. Carter Booth? No. Katie Bordenaro? Yes. Anita Brandt? Yes. Amy Brenna? Yes. Rich Kakapolo? No. Ritu Chatri?
No.
No. Valerie De La Rosa?
No.
No.
Sem anunciar.
Andres Diaz? Andres Diaz? Abstain. Chris Dignas? Yes. Arturo Fernandez? Yes. Mark Fitzgerald? Yes. Cormac Flynn? No. Susan Gammy? Yes. Ann Hager?
Yes.
Yes. Susan Kent?
Abstain.
Abstain. Ryder Kessler? Yes. Janine Kiley? Yes. Ivy Quanars?
Yes.
Yes. Patricia Laria? Yes. Michael Levine? Yes. Janet Liff? Yes. Benjamin Listman? Yes. Ed Ma?
Yes.
Yes. Matthew Metzger? Yes. Brian Pape? Yes. Lois Rakoff? No. Rocio Sands? No. Shirley Secunda?
Yes.
Yes. Edward Siegel? No. Frederica Siegel? No. Emma Smith? Yes. Dr. Shirley Smith? Yes. Chenault Spence?
No.
No. Susan Wittenberg? Yes. And this passes. 23.
The
yes.
final vote? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. 23 yes to 11 no. 2 abstentions.
Thank you. Street activities is next. Pick a mic.
Okay. Ooh, I can't imagine this will be quite as engaging as that last conversation. Will could not be here, so he asked if I would present these. This is my first time actually presenting resolutions 5 years into my board service. So I'm a little nervous. We had 14, I guess, resolutions we actually heard and voted on. All but two of them are events that have already taken place. So number one was a production event for a store that we approved. Number two was the New York Food Truck Association presenting for a food truck to promote a K-pop band. We approved that unanimously. Three was J. Crew for an ice cream cart. They were a no-show, so we denied that unanimously. Number four was Meatpacking Crew, a crawfish boil event that we approved unanimously. Five was Sephora for another kind of giveaway style event, kind of like a food truck, but they were giving away barrettes. Although the person presenting kept calling them berets, and we were like, are you giving out hats or what? We approved that unanimously. 6 and 7 were both JBL events on kind of catty corner streets. One was a curb lane closure and the other was a full, no, both were curb lane closures, but on different streets for a kind of fair style thing they were doing to promote the speakers. We approved those unanimously. There was the Police Athletic League Festival, Broadway between 14th Street and Waverly for a street closure fair, which happened a few days ago. We approved that unanimously. The next thing was a product launch. I don't know what the product was. They did not show up. We denied it unanimously. 10 was for a Coinbase promotion on Washington Square North, a food truck style giveaway, which we approved unanimously. 11 was the Italian American Emporium Red Sauce Studio ribbon cutting. They did not show up, so we denied that. Stonewall Village Fair and Expo did not show up, so that was a deny. The ones that actually are forthcoming was number 13, June 7th, City of School is proposing to have a full street closure for their end of school year barbecue, where they're gonna set up tables. They're not doing any amplified sound or anything on the closed street, but they have their kind of like graduation-ish celebration on the school grounds, and they just wanted to have space for folks to sit, and we approved that unanimously. And then MS 297's PTA proposed a Morton Street block party on June 8th for an end of year celebration, which we approved unanimously. And then 15 through 21 were FYI renewals.
Anyone want to call any of those out or ask any questions about any of the ones presented? Okay, seeing none, if there's no objection, we will take those as a block. Great lung capacity, by the way. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions or recusals? They all pass. Thank you. So next is traffic, and Janet is going to present. Another new.
So we had two resolutions. The first was in response.
Can you get closer to the mic? Sorry.
Boop, boop. All right, so we had two resolutions. The first was in response to a presentation by DOT to put bike lanes on Gansevoort from 10th to Greenwich, Hudson Street to also 10th to Greenwich and Hudson to West 13th on Gansevoort, and Horatio between West and Hudson. And most of that work really is just putting in granite pavers, so the bicycles will stay in the street and not have to go over the cobblestone. So we endorsed the plan to extend the bike network in the Meatpacking District with just a few considerations. One, there's going to be a little bit of a ramp to get the bicycles off a little plaza around Gansevoort Street where they currently go, but they might sort of curve around. So they're putting in a little sort of an exit ramp there. And we said that there should be cycle stamps to clearly alert pedestrians in the parklet that they're on a shared pathway, and signage to reinforce that cyclists must yield to pedestrians. And then we also resolved that pedestrians and bicycles should be separated on the 9A crosswalks by clearly marking pedestrian and bike zones within the crosswalk, which is not done now and would be an improvement. and that the bike path markings and the bicycle mini ramp are clearly visible to pedestrians and bicyclists. And then the second resolution was in response to a request for adjustment of city bike stations at 95 Morton on the north side of the block between Washington and Greenwich. And we unanimously recommended that they remove these 12 bike stations from in front of 95 Morton and reuse the stations in a nearby location, preferably near Hudson River Park. We also want them to implement parking regulations in front of 95 Morton, prohibiting standing from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that's because there's a, forgetting, I'd have to read through this, but there's a tenant there that has, is a good business. They have people come, a lot of people who are coming that might be handicapped or have to get dropped off, and they can't actually reach the front door. It's very awkward for them. And so both of those were unanimously approved. Okay.
Sorry, we have questions. Okay, Ryder had his hand up first, then I'll call on Katie. We have a selection of mics.
Thanks. I have two questions about the second resolution. One is there any guarantee that if these docks were removed from this location, that they actually would be placed elsewhere? Or is there a possibility that they would be removed and there just would be less city bike service in the neighborhood? And number two is, it sounds like we heard from the tenant right there at the city bike docks, but did we hear from anyone who bikes and uses those docks because they live or work or otherwise like to bike in that neighborhood? Thanks.
No, we did not hear from other people. We were pretty adamant, because the resolution does say that we want those bike share stations relocated within the district. So we were clear about that with DOT, that we did not want to lose those 12 stations. Okay. And it is in the resolution.
Katie was next.
Hello? Oh, it works. Thank you for including in the first resolution a long-standing request for the granite bike lane on Morton Street between Washington and West, something that Susan and I worked with Shirley on many, many years ago. So thanks for underlining that, keeping it alive.
Okay, and then Amy, and then I have Ritu online.
Janet, Dan Miller, who's on the committee, does live there and bikes a lot. So he did
Right.
kind of represent the community at great length. And he's an avid biker, and he's all for doing this and advocating for them to move them. And in fact, but he was saying further west, there are 0 bikes. There's no bike stations. And so you could move these to a place where they're actually needed.
Thank you. Ritu.
Yeah, so I live very close by to where the bike station is. There is a lot of usage of city bikes in my area. Oftentimes, there aren't either any docks available when you want a dock, or there aren't any bikes available when you want to take out a bike. And it is, if it gets moved a block west, that would be fine. My concern is that if it moves into the park, it'll become relatively less accessible, given the distance and the usage in the area. But all 4 stations that are located nearby get very heavy usage.
Okay. Any more questions or anything? Otherwise, if there's no objection, we will vote on resolutions 1 and 2 together. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions or recusals? Okay, they pass. Thank you. And then next is SLA.
Hi, I'm Donna. Okay, so Donna's asked me to present tonight. and in a particular way, because she thinks the way I used to present didn't give enough details. Anyway, SLA 1. So we had 19 applicants with 21 applications. Oh, wait, let me go back a moment. I know some people here are new. That was announced in the beginning. So there's a very important thing you need to know about liquor license.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a very important fact you need to know about liquor license. When we recommend that the license be denied, it says denied. When we recommend the license be approved, it says deny unless. I know that's really counterintuitive and very maddening and kind of uncheerful and a downer, but it's not our choice. It's what they decided in Albany and told us to say. So, to be clear. So, we had 19 applicants with 21 applications. That's because the SLA is now, as part of their attempts to deal with the backlog situation, allowing people to file simultaneously for a beer and wine and their OP, because their OP might take longer. And so we had 9 things that were layovers and no-show layers and draws rather, and 9 that were deny unless, and 1 that we recommended denial. So I'll go through them from the top. THNYC Restaurant at 264 Bowery, previous unlicensed space. This was a deny unless. 739 Broadway Restaurant Corp. Doing business as the famous Cozy Soup and Burger. This is a transfer. For those of you who know the place, it's been around for 40 years, something like that. All that's happening here is changing generations. The son and nephew of the current operators, who's been working there for 30 years, is taking full ownership. Deishang doing business as Genki Omakase. Another previously unlicensed space. This was also deny unless. Yusen Inc. doing business as Sushi Saiku. This is a transfer. And again, this is there's a place there that is basically the exact same format, the exact same cuisine, is just changing owners. Supernatural Restaurants doing business as Chloe, 185 Bleecker Street, which is also a deny unless. This, by the way, people might remember, there was this restaurant, Chloe. Chloe founded the restaurant. She was then ousted by her partners, had a dispute with them over the name. They had to change the name. They changed the name, then they closed in COVID. Now she's back in the same space, having snagged it back, and is going to reopen. D4 Hospitality at 155 Grand Street. This is another deny unless. Central Corporation do business as Hometown Hot Pot and Barbecue at 194 Grand Street. This is a transfer. This is another situation where it's, you know, the sort of, they're just doing the same thing. They've been there for about 9 years, liquor license for 6 years. The guy's been managing it for 8 years, is just taking it over. And they're going to keep the same staff and everything. Juicery Nolita doing business as the Butcher's Daughter. So I should point out about this one. This was just an alteration. They want to add their sidewalk seating. We did not actually hear, like we did not have a hearing on it. It was posted, and so we took written testimony or anything that anybody sent in, but we waived their appearance because they were just, you know, what they were asking for in terms of the outdoor dining was within the rules of the thing, and they'd been done before, so why have them come down? Likewise with the next one, number 9, Shush NYC, FK Anat Dishful, right, at 41 Greenwich Avenue. We waived this appearance because this is something we approved and this board approved some time ago, but because of issues of whatever kind, they did not file in time upstate, and so they had to re-notify, and so had to come back for us. Finally, number 10, the item that we recommended denial on, this is Talum, doing business as Ken Pai at 183 Grand Street. This was the item that the woman with the very creative little map he cut out appeared about earlier. These folks first appeared on our calendar in October. They deferred, they came in December, just the lawyer and the principals didn't come and he couldn't answer any of the questions. So they asked to lay over and they've been laying over. They didn't show up last month. And then we found out since then that they've been trying to move ahead with their application in Albany. So we calendared them again and they did not show up again. So we're recommending denial. One other point I would make on this, as I said, 11 through 19, 11 withdrawals. I know there's a lot of interest in Great Jones Distillery, one of those items. We did hear that, spent a lot of time in the committee on it. For not the first time. They've been there a couple of times. We thought that was going to be wrapped, but they're still, they told us that they can't sign the STIPs right now. They may be coming back or they may decide to. They're still working it out. So they took a layover after the hearing.
Okay. So let's deal with SLA, the first one. Is there anyone want to call out any of those items for discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none, if there's no objection, we've got 1 through 10, which are substantive resolutions, and then 11 through 19, which are the layovers and no-shows. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions or recusals? Okay, number 2.
SLA 2. Here we had 21 applications and applicants. There were 7 substantial resolutions and the rest were layover and denials. Number 1 was the Whitney Museum. This was a corporate change. It's about one of the food situations in there. They were just moving around who's among the co-owners is operating and owning, moving from a 49% stake to 100% stake in it. You will see a lot of STIPs in there. That is all language approved before by this board. It's, there's no change in the method of operation. That was a deny unless. I should have said before about the other one, as well as this one, all the votes were unanimous this month. Number 2, the 609 Padel LLC and Mogador Greenwich LLC at 120 Leroy Street. This was for an on-premises license, liquor license for, and an on-premise restaurant license. They were applying for a private members club with rooftop bar and paddleball courts and a previously unlicensed location. You all might recall that was the other one that somebody had come and spoken with in the public hearing. We recommended that this be denied. We did, as was complained about in the hearing, talk to people a little bit about what it might look like if it succeeded, what STIPs might be, but there were too many open questions. There were no sound studies. There were too many things were just not figured out, worked out about it. And there were serious questions about whether the zoning even allowed them to have this rooftop. And so we recommended denial. Number 3, Killoween West Side, Inc., doing business as Keg and Lantern at 29 7th Avenue South. And this was a deny unless with STIPs. And then West 10 West, doing business as West 10 West at 242 West 10th Street. This was an alteration, add sidewalk and roadway. This was denied. You can read the resolution, but there are any number of reasons, but not the least of which is it's not at all clear that legally they could have, for instance, the road bed in that space because of the measurements. There've also been sort of a history with the operator of not coming through on commitments to the community. So number 5, the West 4th Street Building Society at 239 West 4th Street. For those who remember, this is the Fedora space. That is a deny unless as well. Arvine Hospitality at 19 Greenwich Avenue. That is also a deny unless. And finally, MVMH Hospitality, which is FKA. I don't know what FKA means. as Matthias Van Leyden Ozen Bacher, doing business as Le Petit Village at 173 7th Avenue South. This, by the way, is the old Baby Brasa space that has been a big problem for us in fast. That was also a deny and less.
Usually FKA is formally known as.
Thank you. Because I kept looking at the going, I don't know, made me hungry, FICA.
Okay, anyone want to call out? We've got 7 substantive resolutions and then 8 through 21 are the layovers, no shows. Anyone want to call any of those out? Seeing none, we will take those as a block. So all in favor? Abstentions or recusals? Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Ryder, please. Okay, we do have some, go ahead. Ryder first. Which ones are you abstaining on? 2 and 4. I'm sorry, Matt, were you abstaining on number 2? Anyone else? And Chris? No on 2. Okay, thank you for the corrections. Okay, the last item that for votes is the letter that we received yesterday from the Borough President's Office promoting or recommending that the open meetings law be amended so that bodies such as community boards are not required to meet their quorum requirements through an in-person count. This is actually it's a subject, you know, I think letter is self-explanatory. Is anybody have any discussions on this, questions, whatever? I will start with Katie and then I will go to you, Amy. And we do need a microphone. Somebody can just please provide Katie with a microphone.
So if there are 30 in-person participants, board members, then quorum would be 16.
Quorum would be counted in terms of present wouldn't be limited to people who are physically present. And by that, I am including people with qualified disabilities. That's what currently is the rule.
Okay, so if there are 30 in the 2 combined categories, then quorum is still 50% plus 1.
It's always 50% plus 1, and a quorum is always going to be required or else you never have an official meeting. That's a Robert's Rules standard.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
Sure. I'm sorry, Amy was next, and then I will go to you.
I have a couple of comments and I share these. We talked about this at exec when I was still on the executive committee, and I'm repeating some of those comments and adding some additional ones given the letters. I just stayed up front that I'm in favor of keeping the current in-person quorum requirement. I'm all for keeping the hybrid meetings. I think they're important for all the reasons that we do it. And I agree with Mark Levine's letter where he talks about how we need more resources and money, et cetera, to do them most effectively, for sure. But that's not included in the language in Brad Hoylman's proposal. There's no money to make it easier for community members who have to or want to participate remotely and to encourage more public participation remotely, right? Because we see the issues, right? When you have people up on Zoom and some people in the room, and that's not addressed. When we had originally talked about the executive committee, we were asking for the ability to have, if in the most extreme example, 0 board members present and still have quorum. And this is better because it's saying, you know, what's the percentage again? I know 25%. So that would mean that we only would need in this room tonight to have quorum 12.5 community board members. And just imagine this room with only 12.5 community board members, but yet we have this big room hoping to encourage the public to engage with us. Now, a lot of times we don't have a lot of public people to engage with us, but the point is that although we may be the least important government officials in New York City, we are government officials. And I feel strongly that the public should have in-person access to as many of us as possible. That's where they get to be seen as individuals, they get to be heard as individuals. And if they want to participate on Zoom, that is great, because our job is to represent the public, to represent our neighbors in our community. And we need to be physically
they need to be able to face us in person. And Zoom is for them to have, hopefully encourage more of them to participate, right? And also to allow for people who have accessibility concerns to also participate. So we have a more diverse community. I recognize that some people feel that allowing for a lower in-person quorum might encourage a more diversity on the community board as well. And I don't really have an answer to that. And I think that's a legitimate concern. But I would just like to point out that we are volunteers. We raise our hand to serve on this board. And when we raise our hand to serve on this board, it makes it clear, because I had to reapply, they mentioned it over and over again, that the only requirement is that we show up 3 times a month for meetings and we vote. That's a pretty low bar, okay? A really low bar. And we've voluntarily raised our hand to do that. And then to come and say, well, honestly, I'm not really sure. I don't want to get into the reasons why it might be only 12.5 people would be here, okay? That's for everyone's own individual situations to decide. But I feel that, as flawed, tragically flawed as American democracy is, one of the bedrocks is that people can meet face to face with their government officials. And we are government officials. And I think we need to be here as a 50% quorum. And I'm happy to debate this with anybody. I just want to share my point of view. So I'm going to be voting against this tonight.
I'm sorry, were there other? Yes, okay. I will go across. So I'll go to Ryder and then I will go to Carter.
Thanks. I think having read the letter and the text, I think I genuinely don't quite understand the proposal. Right now, my understanding is that right now we have to be here in person as individual CB members unless we have a medical dispensation to appear via Zoom. And so we generally have 50% plus 1 people in the room because of that. This would allow us to have 25% plus 1 or 25% in the room. And then would that mean that individual CB members could choose to Zoom in, say if they were on a work trip or something like, and if not, if it still would be required except for a medical reason, like what is the real world change that this would effectuate?
It's actually a good question because quorum is simply a determiner of whether or not a meeting becomes official. Whether or not the law is further amended so that you actually have more, it only contains 2 exceptions right now for remote participation. Either you have the qualifying disability or you have the extraordinary circumstance. It doesn't appear that would also have to change so that people could just be remote without having to, make that attestation. But the question of the quorum, now I will also point out to you, there is nothing that prevents this board from setting other standards. It's simply saying that the open meetings law will not require it. It doesn't prevent us from setting a different standard. We'd had an example earlier this year where a committee met on a night that it was very bad weather. Several city agencies recommended that people stay home and not go out. But because it was not an actual declared emergency, that meeting, I told people, you have to be safe. It's not going to be official meeting or not, just do the work. Because it was only a committee meeting, ultimately it was voted on at full board, which had the quorum. But what would also, if that weather had happened on the night of a full board, what you would end up doing is basically silencing the board for a month. Because that would mean if there was no quorum, there is no official vote. So if you maintain a hard standard, you leave us no flexibility. As I said, we can create our own standards for when we might want to, but what this is hoping to do is create more flexibility. Now, that was my 2 cents. I will, Carter first, and then I will get to you, Matt.
I want to speak to this and then make a motion. I think that we have not, as a board, had a thorough conversation on a lot of these issues because it keeps getting discussed in a very brief format at our executive committee. And I think that this should be referred to a committee for lack of thinking one would be the bylaws committee, just because that's a more board operations style committee of what's there, to have a public hearing and discuss, and board members just raise what we want to do, because this is the first full board meeting that you can actually hear everybody. It's the first full board meeting where we've been able to have a debate, and this is how long have we been doing hybrid meetings, and we really need to figure this out if we can keep doing this to even lower further the numbers of people coming in person. Just makes that even more complicated if we were trying to have a meeting and there is no funding. Again and again, there's no funding to help make this work. And that's really important. So my motion is that we refer this to the bylaws committee as part of a larger conversation, and people can have an in-depth conversation that this topic, I think, deserves.
Okay. Look, we can certainly bring this up as something to bring to a committee for further discussion. I will just point out, as I said earlier, this letter showed up yesterday afternoon, and the borough president asked for support with the expectation that it would go out tomorrow. Unfortunately, that doesn't really say much about how much they care about our opinion, because if it didn't just happen to occur in this narrow window, we wouldn't have been able to comment, even given the opportunity to comment on it. So it may be preferable, in people's opinion, to say that it is premature for us to support this. I will go.
I just want to go back to Ryder's point. We don't even understand it completely. And that's sort of my point.
Yeah.
And we don't have a.
Okay.
No, but I
Okay,
just pointed
I
out.
would like to, well, okay, we can make a motion to discuss this, but at the same time, you're saying that you want to make a motion to refer this letter?
Well,
Because the letter is.
The board refuses, despite my trying to bring this up and over, to address this topic. And it is a topic that should be addressed. I mean, like I said, we couldn't debate in previous full board meetings the issues we debated tonight. But with all those eligible and present to vote. And that really needs to be sorted out as a board of what we would like to do on that.
What I think is actually advisable is that we should be voting on whether or not to support this letter as one item, and then a second item being to have this discussion. We may, because otherwise I will simply have to say, I don't have a position on this. We cannot support it, or whatever. It's not a problem. I mean, personally, it's not a problem. There's just simply a timing issue there. That's all. Matt had his hand up.
I was confused on what the motion was. So the motion is to support or not support the letter.
Yes, and then let's go back to that discussion about where it's appropriate to bring this conversation. Yes, Keen.
I am going to vote against this. I believe very strongly that in person we communicate much better. And you heard Chris Marte and Eric Botcher come in person. There is something more powerful of in-person work. And I think if we respect each other, we come together and do this.
Janine, thank you. I'm sorry, and I will call on you after Janine. Behind you, Janine.
I am going to support this. In terms of Carter's concern about timing, there is legislation that could be passed at the state level. And if we wait till next month, it's too late. So this just basically, and the hybrid issues that we've all discussed, I think we all agree, are an issue whether the quorum is 13 people in the room or 51%. So those are separate issues. So I support this. We need to get money. We need to work on hybrid, but those are other issues. And I think Susan can decide which committee will best address this. Thank you.
Okay, Valerie's next, and then I will go to Mark.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out, in terms of how much time a meeting takes and, that the hybrid and the that the Zoom option and a hybrid meeting, used as is an extraordinary circumstance for whatever that form is that we're not talking about right now. That as you saw earlier, we spend time tailoring the meeting to the needs, the very specific needs that takes up more time away from doing the business of the board. So I just offer that. Again, this meeting was technically on point, but a lot of the times we are spending extra time doing that, which takes away from the business of the board.
Mark.
I wanted to say that this doesn't just affect us. It affects boards all across the city. And I work with boards all across the city, and they all have different concerns. There are boards that don't meet in person at all because they can't for whatever reason, or they choose not to, or they have a lot of people with accessibility issues or older members, and that's what works best for them. So I personally will support this letter because that is the equitable thing to do. Doesn't mean that we have to implement it here. We can determine that at a later date, but we shouldn't cut off the other boards if this works for them or is a necessity. We can't just think about ourselves.
And I will just point out that were we to set our own standards, we could have different standards for committees versus full board. That is another option. I have Chenault online, so let me call on him next.
I wanted to say that, with respect to the Landmarks Committee, we had a very unsatisfactory presentation the other night because the applicant was not online, but elected to come, which is very rare. And it was altogether a good example of why sort of, if you will, unlimited online activities are better.
Thank you. Yes, Valerie.
And I'm going to defer because I do not have I'm good.
Were there, I'm sorry, who else? Oh, sorry. Okay.
So if we do support this letter, then we do have a position on this, a past board position. Is that correct?
We have not taken a position previously to this on this subject.
And I think that answers the question that we don't have a position on this. Thank you.
Yes, Matt.
I actively dislike the letter. I think we should show up. And as a person who avails themselves of the online option, frequently enough, I like that it's there, but the fact that we're required to be here gets me here most days or most nights. I'm totally honest, right? If I don't have to be here, I love some of you. I probably will stay home. I find the idea that able-bodied people want to take the meeting from home, I got to be honest, pretty lazy. And so I think decisions are made by those who show up. We got to show up.
Okay, we've got more. Artur? We need a microphone. Why don't you take the one out of the stand?
I think just as a person who was a part of the community previously and was trying to participate in a community board meeting as just like a resident, I found it kind of difficult actually to participate through Zoom. I think coming in person and seeing everybody and kind of like getting to know the faces and getting to understand how these things function a little bit better would have been, I think as a resident, a little bit more effective way for me to participate. But I am sympathetic of just accessibility and getting more people to participate and offering that option. But I think as like elected officials and people who want to get to know the community board, the in-person vibe or environment is actually, I think, very productive.
Susan. There was another mic floating around. Otherwise, okay.
I think we may be conflating personal preference for what is ultimately best in terms of accessibility here. And supporting this letter in no way curtails anybody's ability to attend these meetings in person. I would say it's a fairly safe bet that most of us who are here tonight would continue to be here if we were able to still attend via Zoom and be counted towards a quorum. So I think personal comfort and interest is one thing, and or judgment about and I think some of this implies a kind of judgment that somehow it's lazy to attend by Zoom. And I think that really denies a whole world of understanding of the distinct circumstances that many people find themselves in. And I think the advantages potentially far outweigh the disadvantages here.
Thank you. Okay, we have Ryder.
Okay, I think I actually am still confused because my sense is that what this law is proposing wouldn't actually scratch the itch that we're talking about. Like, I totally agree with Mara that, you know, a lot boards operate differently. We should have maximal flexibility. I disagree with Matt about not showing up being lazy. I think there's a lot of benefits to fully remote meetings or more remote access to bring in the kinds of people who don't have the time and capability to come in person. But my understanding is that that's not what this is about, because it's not a 25% quorum doesn't mean that suddenly we have the option to say, okay, do I want to Zoom in or come in person? My understanding is that the law still requires that these meetings, that people come in person unless they have a medical reason not to. And no matter what the board is and no matter what the exigencies of the members, that like, there's still a requirement to come in person. The only question is the board's business seen as legitimate if a lot of people don't? Like, it's about the quorum. So I guess I want a law that says we can have fully remote meetings, et cetera. But the actual implication of this to me seems to be this board, as an example, it's the one I know best, you know, 15 people could come and could pass resolutions speaking for the full board because there would be quorum, but with a very, you know, 25% of the actual people, like that doesn't sit right with me. I have all of the concerns about, or thoughts about the benefits of remote participation, but since that doesn't, my understanding, which could be wrong about what this bill actually would do, I don't, you know, I just think the question is like, what actually would this effectuate in the real world? And is that something that we would want to endorse?
Okay, who else? Okay, Amy, I guess is next, and
I'll
then
be very brief. So nothing would change. There would be the Zoom. People could, you know, if they had work or another thing, they could, you know, if they hadn't filled out the form that they, you know, had whatever reasons that are outlined in the document that they could be quorum remotely, they wouldn't count as quorum, but they could still vote and they could do all that kind of stuff. Nothing would change. From what I can tell, the little research I got to do and since this was sent out, the only thing that changes is how many bodies have to be sitting in seats for quorum. And it doesn't, this is not why I would vote against it, but it does not help us solve the problems of all the issues because Mark Levine talks about funding, et cetera, but this is not included in the open meetings law. So, right, that's a separate issue, but I'm just saying, you know.
money is always the hardest thing to
Right.
get.
So it's just from what I understand in the little time I had to call around is that it's how many people are sitting in the seats for quorum.
That's right. Cormac.
So, you know, I'm actually quite sympathetic to the butts and seat approach. As everybody knows, I like to be here. I wasn't even for hybrid to begin with. What? Sorry, take it. Should I wait or go ahead?
We have, yes, no,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
All right.
We don't have much time left,
so I'm
actually.
very sympathetic, but here's, to me, the reason that I will vote to support this. And if we can all remember, this isn't like a vote to support, this is to vote to support his letter. And I'm in favor of Carter's thing too about having a committee work on this issue, right? But the reason that I will vote to support it is because I know for a fact that in the last couple of years, right, since this hybrid came in, or in the last year, or whatever it's been, right? There have been times where we have been this close to not getting quorum, which would have rendered all of our resos null and void, and all of our work for that month null and void. And I just don't think that's worth the risk. let them lower the legal quorum. And then we can all just show up anyway. As you said, we can create our own policies to have more people come. But I think this would be good. It would take a lot of pressure off, that close to the edge thing that we've been the last year. Thank you.
No one else is online. Okay, this is the final item we're voting on, so it will be a roll call vote.
All right.
The question is whether or not we're voting to sign on to this letter as an official statement of CB2 support. And yes, I will take, you're absolutely right. We should take this up, in a more thorough way.
Great.
The motion is simply to support that we vote that CB2 will be a co-signator of this letter. That's it. Anything, I hope that's clear. Okay.
Okay. Susanna Aaron. Oh, I'll repeat for the folks online. Susanna Aaron, yes. Keenberger. No. Carter Booth. Abstain. Katie Bordenaro. Yes. Anita Brandt. Abstain. Amy Brenna. No. Rich Kakapolo. Yes. Ritu Chatri.
Yes.
Yes. Valerie De La Rosa. No. Andres Diaz. Yes. Chris Dignas. Yes. Arturo Fernandez. No. Mar Fitzgerald. Yes. Cormac Flynn. Yes. Susan Gammy. Yes. Ann Hager.
Yes.
Yes. Susan Kent.
Yes.
Yes. Ryder Kessler. Abstain. Janine Kiley.
I liked the pause.
Yes.
for it.
Ivy Quanars. Ivy? All right, we lost that.
Ivy had to go.
Okay, thanks, Anne. Patricia Laria? Yes. Michael Levine? Yes. Janet Liff? No. Benjamin Listman? Yes. Ed Ma? Is he back online? Oh, he is.
He is.
Ed.
Ed, yes or no? Or abstain, I'm sorry, or recuse. I don't think he can hear us.
Ed, can you hear us? Okay, we'll pause on that for now. We'll come back. Matthew Metzger? No. Brian Pate? Yes. Lois Rackoff? Abstain. Rocio Sands? Abstain. Shirley Secunda?
Abstain.
Abstain. Edward Siegel?
Abstain.
Abstain. Frederica Siegel? Yes. Emma Smith? Abstain. Dr. Shirley Smith? Abstain. Chenault Spence?
Chenault?
Yes, sorry.
You're good. Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Susan Wittenberg? Abstain.
Yes.
Is that a yes from Ed? We'll pause.
1 second. He's a yes.
Edmonds, yes. That actually just pushed us over to pass. So that's yes, vote on that. The official tally, we have 19 yeses. Oh,
Normally, we don't vote by phone, but he was silenced, and he was here up until a very brief. And he's still on. You mean if we send him a. Okay. Okay. Do you really want to deprive him of a vote?
19 yes, 6 no, 10 abstain.
But to be clear, Ed didn't call you, you called him to solicit him an answer?
We're done. Yeah, I think we're.
He called me to say he couldn't hear. But he thought he was, so we called to get another link. So I gave it to him, but he was already there.
Okay, the vote again was, I'm sorry, please repeat it.
19 yes, 6 no, 10 abstentions.
Okay,
That's 35 total, and we lost Ivy.
okay. Is there any other items of business? Otherwise, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Oh, yes, 304 Bowery, Slanja. Don't the new members buy the old members the first round? Isn't that the tradition? We try.
No, my dad's middle.
Thank you, everyone who's online. We're done.
Thank you, Susan Kent. Thank you,
Heard
Edmond.
Ed.
Oh,
Thank
here,
you,
here.
Ed.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Finally,
I
thank
can
you.
hear him now.
Okay, thank you. Where's Ed? Thank you. Where's Ed?
那个屁，整天他妈闯祸，死的！人家一讲讲，我们有个报名本，什么也不会，业力。